Oh yeah, to clean up your language.
Yeah, this is that stream that's private to
For the Patreon
dudes.
I think they
It's
like it a
found.
little salty.
Patreon dudes. Hey Tom, you got lantern flies at your house?
They're just everywhere.
Yeah.
Like around my house is probably like where I've seen the least. Like they're there, but like you take a walk anywhere and it's
Yeah, ours isn't terrible yet. I talked to Brian this week though. He's in Springdale, wherever he is. He said he goes outside and can kill them by the hundreds.
It's there's certain places where it's just there's like a million of them. It would be like a really good start for like a horror movie or something.
Like the end of the world, like a plague of lantern flies.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I see him. We go on Millville Trail sometimes, and it's just covered, like spots on there, just covered.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out like what the heck, why were they around our house? Because they're like on the front porch, like up top, and by our trash, there's that tree of heaven, weed, and like they said that's like nectar for them shits. So I boiled a lot of hot water all over them.
you're having fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, like this thing of like, yes, smash them on sight, like because I've never heard that before in my life, so it's just it's an interesting.
Yeah, that's what my backup comic is in with my daily strip characters. It's stomp the lanternfly, but then it's like give little kids that message, and so like they're fucking burning praying mantises and like doing shit like that. All right, now we got people starting to show up.
Excellent. Pull this up and we will join them. Morning, King Kayfabers. Look at our. Did you have your coffee this morning, Tom?
I did not have my coffee.
Like,
I'm off coffee, so I think it'll put me at just the right energy level not having coffee.
Did you go off of coffee like for good, or you just haven't had any today?
I mean, most likely for good. Stuff never works out that way. But it's like, okay, let me see what life's like without coffee. So I've been, doing that.
You replace it with like tea?
No,
No caffeine.
I mean, not no caffeine, but like I'm not.
What else is it, man? You drink Coca-Cola all day?
Well, no, like water or whatever. But like I'll have chocolate or whatever. Like I know people who've given up like vanilla. Like they've given up like anything that might have like the slightest caffeine. It's nothing like that. Just coffee.
So much good stuff, man. I think this will wake Tom up.
Have you seen?
Yeah, I saw the first one.
Yeah, this will wake Tom up a little bit. So guys, is there something up with the chat? Like, it says that the chat is... Oh, it's on my live stream. Oh, so it's showing up on yours. Yeah, it's not showing up on my... I guess maybe I could just refresh that.
Ronin will definitely wake me up too. That's like... Got a lot of opinions about Ronin.
That's exciting. Kind of like this issue this week.
Yeah.
I was down on 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen... Yeah, your 3 hasn't gone up yet.
Yeah, it'll go up tomorrow.
But yeah, I've been enjoying that series, and I was like, yeah, I want to talk to you guys about Ronin. Like, I want to get in on this because it is like it's something. It's
It kind of makes me think like there's probably a bunch of these comics that I read in pieces, all disjointed, and whenever I would find an issue, I'd be like, oh, I just read issue 4 for there's a bunch of stuff that I think if I went back and reread in order, I'd have very different reactions to.
For the longest time, I thought like, okay, maybe it's just 4 issues. Maybe this thing got canceled because it was like years. Like I think I finally read like I think I knew you guys by the time I like read the last 2 issues of Ronin.
That's funny. Yeah, that's a series. Like I always say, it took me 3 years to get them all, but they did not come in order, and I never sat down and read them like from beginning to end in one kind of coherent.
Yeah, it's weird.
reading.
Like nobody's gonna have that experience ever again. Like,
right.
And that was so much fun. Like Jack Kirby's Fourth World loomed so large when you're just kind of grabbing like little bits of it.
I think that stuff works better that way.
For sure.
Like you're doing the linear Thors and stuff, and I've read a bunch of Thor linearly, and but I first read them right where you could find them, and that was a much more rewarding experience, but also like we're creative people, so like we have that interest in like filling in the gaps and letting our imagination run wild a bit. So like you just don't need that linear shit.
Yeah, I think I mean it just you give them the benefit of the doubt. You read it and you're like, I assume a bunch of really cool stuff happened leading up to this, and I assume this is all going to tie up in some beautiful way in the next couple issues or whatever. And you know, it's rarely the case, but you assume that, so then it just makes it seem that much cooler.
Right.
I mean, part of doing videos of it is just that I've tried to read Thor straight through a bunch of times and always give up. So I thought like, oh, if I do a video of it, that'll kind of keep me on track.
Right.
I picked up that giant size Thor. Remember those huge books that Marvel's put out? I found one at Ollie's for like $30, so I got it.
Okay.
Have you ever seen the inside of that?
No.
I think it's like they had recolored it, I think, for a masterwork or something. The coloring's really strange. It's super saturated, almost to blacklight. I like it a lot, but it's a great presentation of that material. It's so psychedelic looking. Like every panel is the size of this iPad. It's a huge book, bigger than your average artist edition.
I feel like it's that same color, you know, from those masterworks. Like that's very super saturated, but like at that big size,
it really sings.
It
really works much
it's a
better
different
than
thing than when it's just like the small, because you could almost like see more dots or something.
Well, that's the thing. The dots aren't there, so I don't know what they're doing with the separations or something. But whatever it is, it's like you're getting this stuff where it's like 100% magentas and 100% yellows and stuff, and it works pretty well.
There was an iteration of the Jack Kirby Thors, like around the time of like the Lord of the Rings movies, where they colored them like a Lord of the Rings. It was all like browns and golds and stuff like that. That's kind of like a different aesthetic for it.
It sounds like feces, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of how they it's how they colored the Barry Smith Conans when they reprinted them.
Yeah, some of that recoloring where they just go brown, especially with the 60s stuff, because that stuff is 100% like candy coated, designed to be that way.
But I think it was like to make it more palatable for a modern audience.
Yeah, I mean, there's very many tasteless people buying comics who like demand exactly that.
Yeah, because it looks like a movie. Like movie aesthetics tend to be that.
Yeah, shitty colored movies.
Yeah, that's like they desaturate.
Start Jim on his rant about like what the 50s look like in movies or 40s. Yeah,
you can see it in cars. You know, like go look at a parking lot. It's all white, gray, and
oatmeal,
black. And then like you look at cars from the 50s, and they're all kinds of weird colors.
Yeah, the pink Cadillac and stuff.
If you want to lock me in there, Jimmy. It's right here.
Okay. You all ready?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Just a tap will do you on that one. Yeah. Welcome to your favorite comic book YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
And I'm Tom Scholey, author of I Am Stand.
And we had this phenomenon occur in the recent past where books got kayfabe affected before we even finished recording them. And now there's a sequel. But first, we do want to let you guys know that this is a daily YouTube channel. More than 1,000 videos in our archives as we speak. And we might have talked about your favorite comics already. Hit the little magnifying glass on the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. And type in your favorite comics. Maybe we talked about it, maybe we didn't. And if we did not, make sure you put something in the comments so that we can push those books to the top of our reading lists. We have a Patreon where the King Kayfabers are enjoying a chat room while we are live streaming this recording session, which is how these books disappear before the general public can get their hands on them. They also get access to the videos before anybody else. So they get the cheapest copies of the books we talk about on the aftermarket. Now, it was maybe a year ago we were talking about, we were urging the audience, make the greatest Death of Superman comic, because like Dan Jurgens, he didn't do it. and we've gotten some good hits. This might be one of the best ones to ever come through, man. Kurt Burdick did this book called Death of Power, of which we did a video on previously, and you guys showed up in a gigantic way to support this project for Kurt. And it turns out there's a second issue now, and it looks like a rebuilding, maybe a return of Power, perhaps.
It was a shock to me. I was very satisfied by the first issue and was surprised to see a number 2 show up.
One thing that is noteworthy is like super sturdy.
Yes.
Like really fucking solid pages, man. It's like beyond cardstock. It has like kind of like a texture to it. You know, like a canvas texture or something. Really solid paper. And I think the trick might be, because I've done this before, where you can get like a cream paper, like an eggshell paper, and then what's cool is it acts like an underpainting, and all the colors like built on top of that eggshell kind of like bring it all into a whole, which is really attractive and sweet.
The color's really nice on these books, and I wonder if that is part of the reason, both the thick paper and maybe an off-white paper.
Yeah. So we're not going to be able to go through all of this thing, so you're definitely going to have to buy this sucker if you want to see the true atrocities. Maybe when the time comes, you could show Tom
Tom can describe it to us.
And
see my reaction.
Get some sort of pop, perhaps. But Death of Power, they got hold of the corpse of Mr. Power, we'll call him, and it's some Elon Musk type fella sitting high atop a tower. He even has like a SpaceX kind of gimmick going on, right?
Yeah, big time. I love the corpse, by the way. No head on this. Read issue 1 if you guys have questions.
Yeah, for sure. Digging in there, dude, and finding his super heart that's kept on a jar in the office. Not much different than like an Adrian Veidt type office situation. Playing with color, right? Like, so there. First off, no black. You know, this is a very dark kind of purple, which is another beautiful aesthetic option that Kurt sort of undertook. But he'll play with different colored lines depending on the materials. So, like this glass case, blue line, beating heart is red. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you got a red Jeff Bezos.
I also see, I feel like there's a Copra, a Fife,
Exactly,
this art.
Even the original Copras were on like the super heavy kind of paper.
He does a lot with flat color as well, and I think that's very flattering. See, that's going to. Oh no, you're.
Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, but like the Kurt will tip in some things, man, to let you know when stuff is gonna get overboard soon. But see, we're still at the foreplay stage.
Yes, we are.
You know, but she's a little randy. You know, like those nipples are ready to go.
And by the way, if you're doing like the Death of Superman, now we're doing the psychological breaking down. Like we're really destroying Superman here,
leaving nothing left.
Nothing sacred
right
in the Superman mythology.
So, Jimmy, you have your copy. Maybe you could turn the next page and tell me if I can turn a page.
I would use this sign to block out the right-hand page.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
I like it.
That's when Tom can take over. But the rocket blasting off, bit of a euphemism from the last page to the pages that follow this one.
Oh, I don't think we could even get to that page.
Good. All right, well then, Tom, it's your turn.
That's exactly what I was hoping to get on the record.
Some role play here for our Lex Luthor and Lois Lane behind Superman's dead body being blasted off into space.
Yeah, interesting choice.
Yes, desecrating all the DC canon.
Yeah, so you know, he doesn't have access to a young boy, so it's not exactly Boindage.
That's good. That's a good thing. I'm not sure we could even own this book if we did.
No. Kurt's name would be on a list.
And then money shots, no pun intended, here in our centerfold.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
We have an elongated man and a plastic man.
Yeah.
Answering all the questions that Brody from Mallrats would have asked the creators of Elongated Man and Plastic Man. But that look on her face, she likes it.
Yeah, she seems satisfied. Our Bezos fella seems pretty happy with what's going on here.
He just likes to watch in the corner.
Yeah, it definitely answers some questions about, tentacle porn in the DC universe and how those two things might commingle.
Yeah, it's never been done. Jolie Schwartz he just had some sort of mandates.
Yeah, they did. That foreshortening wasn't allowed in DC Comics for a few decades. So,
yeah, that would be a challenge to do this spread without some foreshortening. So after the rather perfectly placed centerfold, I think we get back to all ages is probably going a little too far, but definitely something that we can show here.
Okay, so it's the page after the centerfold?
Page after the centerfold, and if you want to hand off, I can just hand off to be safe.
Pause.
So we've had our interaction now, our celebration of the rocket blasting off.
Our tryst. And now you got some doomsdays being manufactured. Sucker for the old superpowers costume. Elongated Man looks happy.
He should.
It's Bezos by way of like Dr. Evil for sure.
Jim, could you go back to that double spread? I just want to check something because I'm just wondering because it would make so much sense for Elongated Man to like use his nose somehow. And
is that what that is?
No, it doesn't look like because like his nose was like
I do see
he would make his nose
out.
stretch a lot in the old so just wanted to see if that was in there.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I don't know that I'd want to go down the imagination road with too many cartoonists.
Pure psychedelia when Elongated Man gets in the Lex Luthor costume.
Yeah, and not to miss it, that is Superman's heart that is powering this machine.
Okay,
yeah. Right.
So, who's how's this going to end? And you know how? With really great cartooning. Look at that, man. When things go wrong, Burdick really steps up to illustrate that.
Absolutely.
That's an amazing couple of panels that go into this page.
I wonder how he works. I wonder if he works on paper. Because it's a very organic stuff. You see, like, paper texture, but, that can be achieved digitally these days.
Yeah, it absolutely could. I never even thought about that until you said it, Ed, and now I'm kind of curious. It's so hard to, like, tell the marks.
Right.
Like I don't even know what the sign is anymore of like, oh, clearly this is digital.
I feel like Kurt might have a franchise on his hand.
It seems like it's becoming more and more its own thing with each volume.
Right.
Like I could see this just turning into something that maybe has no connection to like DC Comics or superheroes at all, like 10 volumes in,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive and definitely a teaser on this back page. Like, now I am expecting a volume 3.
Exactly, man. Totally. Frank Miller describes superhero sex as operatic, and with what we just saw, of which we could not show off on YouTube, a tryst between a Wonder Woman and a Superman might not be much unlike Scott McCloud's Destroy comic.
I mean, it would be a lot like Volume 1. It would, like, there'd be deaths and mass destruction, in a similar magnitude.
So there it is, man. Part 2 of Kurt Burdick's fantastic Death of Power series, where we are urging the Cartoonist Kayfabe audience to create the great Death of Superman comic that has not been created, man, because talk about the DC comic version, all sizzle, no steak. This dude single-handedly made a better comic than we got as kids, to the tune of 4 million copies or whatever it was. Shouts to Kurt, and you guys know the P.O. box is in every video. Send us your great Death of Superman comic. I know there are some great ones in the works. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, gentlemen?
I was looking for his website to tell people where they could go get their own copy of Death of Power, and I don't see that printed anywhere. So I guess what you can do is look up Kurt Burdick, Burdick, and I would guess you could find these somewhere online. I know the first one was available for a while, if it's not still available, so chances are you can find his store and track these down, along with some of his other comics, which have that same level of craft. I think he's a really good artist.
Totally, man. I think Galactic Pit Fighter is his joint, and when we first did the first issue, I looked on the website. It might be an Etsy or something. And there were like 11 comics sold, or at that time. And then we did the vid, and during the recording session, more than 100 during our private stream sold. And then when the video went live, it went like over 500 or something. Dude hit us up and was like, "Thank you so much." He had no idea, by the way, because he was at WonderCon, so he was kind of like not on his phone when these videos went live. And when he was done, he's like, "Holy shit! Like, I already sold out at WonderCon."
That's a nice surprise.
I got to go rush some fresh stuff into print. But super fantastic, man. This came through the mailbag, and absolute delight. Good to go?
Yep.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. We are a daily YouTube channel, so make sure that you search around through the channel. There is a search feature on the front page of our YouTube. And pop in your favorite comic titles. We might have talked about your favorites, and if we didn't, let us know so that we can put those comics to the top of our reading list. We have a Patreon where the King Kayfabers get access to our recording sessions before anybody else, live in fact, and they get the videos that we generate before anybody else. So they have first dibs on comics like Death of Power, which have very limited print runs, maybe 500 or so. Those are getting snapped up right at this very minute. The Patreon is where you get access to our stuff before anybody else. Ultimately, our videos are brought to you by the books that we make, and it's a big year for us here in 2023. The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming to you in October. It's going to have all 4 volumes of Hip Hop Family Tree plus 150 pages of additional materials are in the back. So this is the ultimate statement. The 10-year anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree, the 50th anniversary of hip hop as a culture. Make sure you get your hands on this book. For November, another book for the holidays is X-Men Grand Design. The trilogy is being compressed into a trade paperback edition that is going to be available in time for the holidays, and some of those books are out of print right now, so this will be your way to get your hands on all of it. There are 2 trade paperbacks of my latest comic called Red Room out there in the wild, and the newest series of Red Room comics is called Crypto Killers. 3 issues are out right now, and I have a backup feature in the 3rd issue, which is the first appearance of the characters that are going to be in my daily strip that I'm working on. So I'm very excited to get this one into your hands. It's a hotkey for first appearances of my characters. Tom, what do you got?
Okay, we got I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and we have the Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics softcover edition, both coming out in September. And Monday, August 28th, is Jack Kirby's 106th birthday. It's also the final order cutoff date for Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion from Image Comics. Let your local comics retailer know that you want them to set aside a copy for you.
Yeah, that date might have passed by now.
Could be, but go to the store and pick up your copy if it hasn't made the air by then.
Jimmy, tell the people what you got.
My next book is Street Angel Princess of Poverty. This will be out in November. It is on the schedule. It collects all the Street Angel comics that are not in Deadliest Girl Alive. These will look good as a set on your shelf. So go to your local comic shop and pre-order Street Angel Princess of Poverty while you still can. You can also pick up the Hulk Grand Design while supplies last. This is out of print at the distributor level, which means once it's gone, it's gone. So pick this up if it's sitting on your local retailer shelf. If you haven't gotten a copy yet, I think Amazon still has some at cover price. So pick it up before it's gone, because who knows if it'll be reprinted. The True Crime Funnies #1. I will be reprinting these this fall, but if you can't wait, you can get a digital copy on jimrugg.com or on patreon.com/jimrugg. And follow me there to see my latest comics and zines.
Not the only way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give them those marching orders. Not the only way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give them a couple other options, Jimmy.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
There you have it. Great ways to support the channel. Keep these videos coming to you on a daily basis. Jimmy, give them those marching orders and we'll be on our way.
Make more comics.
I'll do a little commercial real quick.
Take that for your records. Shit's unwieldy, Ed.
We got a bibliography,
We
man.
need like a 30-minute infomercial.
We got a bibliography. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna try to be real quick with it this time, man. I guess lock in on. Cool.
Ready?
This video is brought to you by the Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon. There are 3 levels of support at our Patreon, and the King Kayfabers get access to our live stream recording sessions that make it possible to mitigate the kayfabe effect. They also get the videos before anybody else, so make sure you support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel and get that early access. Ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make. You're looking at a healthy sample of our bibliography right in front of you. Jimmy's next book is going to be Street Angel, Princess of Poverty. It's coming to you in November. It's going to be a companion piece to Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive, in that it collects all of the material that was published prior to the Image Comics release. Jimmy also has Hulk Grand Design out there in the wild. Limited copies available. Make sure you get your hands on that as soon as possible. And the latest comic that Jimmy has right now, which is sold out, but he has promised to reprint this thing. True Crime Funnies, 3 nonfiction stories, including one that has a little something to do with some wrestling. Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming to you in October, just in time for the holidays, collecting all 4 volumes of Hip Hop Family Tree with 150 pages of additionals. Also for the holiday season is X-Men Grand Design Trilogy, which is going to include the out-of-print X-Men Grand Design works that I put together, about a 260 page trade paperback. Red Room is the current focus. 2 trade paperbacks of Red Room are out there right now. The comic I'm putting out these days is Red Room Crypto Killers. It's going to be 4 issues total. 3 issues are out right now. The centerpiece for issue 3, the backup feature, includes the first appearance of the characters that I'm using in my daily strip, which I'm serializing on my Patreon. Tom's in the house with us this round. He's got the hardcover I Am Stan coming to you sooner than later. I believe it comes out in September. We did a big video on this, and you guys showed up in a big bad way and started to do your pre-orders. Make sure you get your hands on this. This is a definitive documentary on Stan Lee. And the paperback version of his Jack Kirby biography is coming out sooner than later as well. Now that we're done paying the bills, back to the video. I'm gonna make a tea, man. I barely even had any sips yet today.
Hey, what 4 books are left?
Palucoville.
Yep.
Tom's unboxing.
Yes. Okay, that's the one I was missing. I was coming up 1 video short. I'm like, what the heck? Never a good feeling.
Jim, it just so happens I got a couple books in this house that if that ever comes up, I feel like there will be no short.
It's still not a great feeling, though. It's me losing my mind is what that translates into.
Right on schedule.
It's a constant struggle. I wonder if your kids help that or hurt that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
There's
I arguments for both.
To Mick Foley, and he's had serious damage.
Sure, yeah, for obvious reasons.
And he said that whenever he kind of quit wrestling and he started going on this tour, doing stand-up, storytelling kind of stuff, and he said,
This is me?
Yeah, it's you. He said that the doctor said it was the best thing he could do for his brain.
Yeah, you're working
like in hindsight,
different,
because he's standing up there, he's
Yeah.
telling stories, he's recalling stuff, but also being in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting. It makes me think about people who struggle with whatever, mental faculties as they get older, and like what can they do to be. My takeaway was it's an engagement. That's kind of an engagement thing.
Yeah, and just working different, different parts of your brain that maybe like never get used.
Right.
So are you saying you're going to start doing stand-up?
No, I'm not saying that. I think my brain's okay. But I just wonder about, like, I have relatives who are dealing with what I would describe as, I don't know, man, some kind of failing faculties.
Both of my grandmas had such dismal fucking brains at the end, you know, but like they also were never challenged.
Right.
Like they were just, you know, barefoot pregnant, make the food type chicks. I don't even know that they did crossword puzzles and stuff. So I feel like that it's like use it or lose it.
I have like 5 parent figures in that age range, and they range in terms of like how they approach retirement. Yeah. And the ones who are active have the best, like they seem to be the most together. And the ones who are like, I'm retired, I'm doing nothing. Yeah. Man, it's their brains are not functioning well. And I mean, maybe those two things are completely unrelated. I don't know, but it's scary.
I always think that like maintaining creativity is such a good thing, and it's probably true. But there's also that the one thing that flies in the face of that is that fucking John Milius guy who is super creative, but like he's like a puddle of nothing now, you know. He can't talk, he can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean there's like very real like diseases
lots of conditions,
and things that
you know what he
can't do
has?
anything about.
No.
What Milius has, because like it definitely freaks me out.
Yeah, the
what does he have?
I don't know. Like Tom's the one that put me onto the documentary.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what his thing is. The guy from Die Hard, his thing.
Oh yeah, Bruce Willis.
Yeah, Bruce Willis is like super.
All right, we gotta do some things here. Get up.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you're under. Okay, you can sit down now. You're just on that wire.
Yeah.
Let me go get my tea real quick, and that should be good. We could call this like. To me, it's one of the most inspiring comics I've looked at in forever. So, you know, the most inspiring comic to hit our mailbag, like something like that. Something hyperbolic at that level.
Yeah, I'm with you. It'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on why it's that way.
Yeah, it's purely for exercise stuff, really. Well, that's not true.
Because one of my theories, because I had a similar reaction, it was very pleasurable to read this.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I'm not reading anything like this anymore.
Yeah, totally. I'm so in love with this channel in as much as like how it forces me to just play around with a bunch of different comics and just like read so much different stuff. Like the week that we here, let me get in here, man. The week that we got Monica, we did Kingdom Come. like we had to do Kingdom Come, and then Monica comes just you know, unexpectedly, and you're not going to not read the new Dan Clowes the second it comes in.
It's such a crooked thing though. It like if everything's a curve, you know, grading on the curve.
Right. No, yeah, right.
Monica crushes on like whatever my thoughts are on a lot of stuff, and then you read Monica and it's like, oh, you know what, that book I kind of enjoyed is really like a D-.
Totally. That Eric Reynolds is so right on that stuff, and I like that Clowes never confirms nor denies.
It works like for individual creators too, because you like hold like really great creators to like such a higher standard than you do so like something that somebody else does, it's kind of like, oh, that was really good, and then, you know.
Oh, John Milius had a stroke.
A stroke, okay.
Yeah,
that'll do it.
That'll do it. Good to go?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube comics channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
And I'm Tom Scholey, author of I Am Stan.
We have a kind of a special one today. We're looking at Palucoville, number 24 by the cartoonist Seth. A little bit different. Haven't looked at one of his works before, but a cartoonist that I'm a big fan of, so this should be a fun episode.
Is Seth still an active cartoonist?
Oh, yeah, this is a brand new book.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So I want to remind everybody that we will be at Baltimore Comic-Con September 8th, 9th, and 10th. A very good comic book show for comic book fans. So come on out, say hello, pick up our latest and greatest. I also want to remind everybody that we have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon. There are 3 different levels that will get you access to our videos early. If at the King Kayfaber level, you'll get access to all of the videos first, including the recording session. And if you want to leg up on the Kayfabe effect, meaning that you get to pick up these books first, that is the best way to do it. So without further ado, Palucoville number 24. As I say, Seth is the cartoonist behind the long-running Palucoville series. Looks a lot different than those early comic book-sized issues. I probably encountered him in the late 90s, early 2000s when I start looking for alternative comics, as they called the genre back then. And he was known for one of his early serialized stories, It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken, about his fictitious quest to meet this elusive cartoonist who he had fallen in love with. One of the great comics about comics and comics about cartooning and cartoonist. And the thing that stands out to me the most, the thing I love about Seth's work, is his cartooning style.
Yeah.
It's very simple, but it's extremely thoughtful in terms of design and just a very unique voice visually. You can see it right away from the cover. Ed, we talked about this. This is Drawn and Quarterly published. Seth is a Canadian cartoonist, Drawn and Quarterly, a Canadian publishing company. But we talked about this off camera a little bit. We both had a good time reading this.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on what it was you responded to with this book?
Yeah, there's a lot, and it's certainly the way he breaks down the comic. He does a couple different things here. So this is kind of the table of contents. The first big story, there's one big story.
Yeah.
And it's kind of his Wimbledon Green style, where he's being a little tighter than he is with what we'll see later, but following a rigid set of rules and kind of going in and out with that. Like instead of having a big panel or something, like he just lets the images kind of Frank King across a bunch. Probably never more than like 6 or 7 words per strip at all. And just extremely inspired by the exercise of what this is. You know, it's 2-color comics, 3 colors if you count the paper color. He's doing a lot with very rigid strictures that he places upon himself. Like I said, this first story very tight, but then the other stuff comes directly from the sketchbook, and these might come from the sketchbooks also. You know, I see the brush strokes and things.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I wonder what we're actually looking at, because you do see some of those marks.
Yeah,
and that's always confusing to me. It reminds me a little bit of Darwin Cook's Parker series, because they were 2-color, and I always wondered about those. And if you see the originals, most of it is in the original. Like he's working like 2-color on the paper itself, and I wonder if Seth is doing something similar. It's neat how he breaks this up. This is an autobiographical story about him, I guess about high school age or so, and he's working through this job.
Is it autobiographical?
I believe so, yeah. And he breaks up the captions to the effect that I get is it's very readable.
Totally.
It'd be very easy to kind of load up on these captions in one panel, and I would just be overwhelmed by a giant text box. But instead, it's kind of spread out along with the visuals, and you see these different approaches. Like this is one giant image around this lake, but broken up into very easy to read, digestible pieces.
Absolutely. Like he's breaking down the iconography of like what is possible in comics. And it will be, you know, even these single image pieces. It would be a fun exercise to read this story with some of that Scott McCloud, some of the charts and graphs about like the panel to panel transition stuff, because there will be panels where it's completely divorced images from one another that are glued together by the text, and it all makes sense when you read it, which is like pure comics.
And I love his ability to play with the simplest shapes on earth, but to create pleasing compositions with them. That second color is really treated, I should say black is really treated almost like the second blue color, because you see a lot of like big shapes as opposed to just using it for outlines or something.
Oh yeah.
This is an interesting effect too, right? Like, is you're remembering various people, but not necessarily their faces and things.
He was the guy who did the design work for the Complete Peanuts.
Yes.
For Fantagraphics, and I was in the offices once when they received a package of his, and it's not when he designs it, he's not in Adobe Premiere or whatever, or like what's the InDesign. He's not in InDesign. It's practical shit with markers and hand lettering and stuff, and he makes the whole big dummy and stuff, and he's like, here, you do it, turn this into a digital thing.
There's a really good article in Comic Art Magazine from the early 2000s. I think Seth is the cover artist, and they have some of that stuff where it's like mock-ups of books, almost like putting together a book dummy so he could color the cover to do his roughs.
Yeah.
He also does stuff like building miniatures. That's what that article, I remember the cover art is a mini city.
Yeah.
So
and that was a touring art exhibit that was in proper fine arts museums.
And I say all that to give context to the way he presents his comics. Extremely thoughtful, a guy who thinks both three-dimensionally as well as a designer, has done a lot of book cover design work because he's just good as a graphic artist in addition to the skills he has as a cartoonist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this first story, is part of a longer narrative.
Love this.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me in some ways of like Ivan Brunetti's Syllabus, where he talks about breaking these things down into like their simplest, and a lot of cartoonists talk about it, into their simplest forms, almost iconography, right?
You know what this exact bit reminds me of? The first Sin City, when
Yeah.
when Marvis gets weapons.
Like a little knife. That's amazing. Yeah, you can think of a few of these items could work in the Sin City Marv checklist.
There's a great Chuck Forsman in The End of the Fucking World, when he's documenting like all the animals that the kid killed,
right,
and just showing I love that approach.
And we have been looking at this 20 panel grids, and now whenever he breaks them, it's to again a different effect. As you're reading this now, you're lingering a little bit longer on this larger panel, even though we often saw several panels making up one image. It's a different effect once you remove those gutters.
Very clear pen and stuff, and I feel proud for him, because in the 90s and maybe even before, like his work was so tight.
Yes.
Constipated tight. And that Seth, who was making that stuff, would not allow for there to be like unevenness of panel border unless it was like so specific. So he's allowing, it's a little bit more human.
He did a book called Wimbledon Green.
Yes, that was a turning point for him.
And I think that he learned a lot in there. And it was a sketchbook. The graphic novel, my understanding is it all came out of his sketchbooks.
Yeah.
So maybe the response to that, either personally or critical feedback, allowed him to kind of move more in that spontaneous direction. And I love it. It's often a way to achieve a little more life on a page. You know, artists constantly talk about how much detail pencils, detail drafts, and then tightened inks, you lose some of that energy.
It's one of my favorite books.
He's got a lot of it here.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books.
We should look at that. That's an all-timer for me as far as like comics about comics.
Sure, yeah, totally, man. And I think it was a big revelation for him, because, you know, like it was to be the next generation who are like the Craft is Dead generation.
Right. Yes.
And his generation like bristled against that so much, but then he kind of like embraced that. And holy fuck, you turned out this thick comic in 6 months, which would be unheard of for him to do. You know, he might do like one issue of Palucoville in 6 months.
All right, I'm skipping ahead a little bit because this is a bigger book and I don't want to give it all away to everybody. It's a new book that's coming out.
Yeah.
So this is the second part of this book. And this is about a film a play that he puts on. It's filmed by Luke Chamberlain, but it's a play that Seth has wrote and developed. Calls it, I think, a suitcase play.
Yeah, it's inspired by, the name is mentioned here somewhere, where he discovered this like stop motion or something in the 60s. I don't know if you could see it. Maybe it's that page before.
It may be this Calder's Circus, a short film by Carlos Villardibo. I'm very sorry, Carlos, because I'm sure that's not right.
But yeah, it inspired him. It was interesting. We could probably find that on YouTube.
It's funny to see like the photograph of Seth versus the drawing of Seth. Boy, they're close.
Yeah, down to the color palettes and stuff. And you see what's required to kind of make this thing work. But I'm going to skip ahead real quick. Like, I guess you could show a couple pages.
Yeah, it's beautiful visuals is the reason that I would linger on this stuff, because I do think it's pretty... you can see Seth is thoughtful in almost everything.
Yeah.
Like the photographs of the miniatures that he made, I remember being so impressed by. This is similar.
Yeah. I mean, this book is a piece of fine art to me. It's different than comics.
Look how great this is.
This is for Punker Mike.
Yes.
Punker Mike will dig this shit because like he does this kind of stuff with his toy work by straight up designing everything. But the cool thing about Seth is he allows the rough edges of like the corrugated cardboard, which might be from like, you know, FedEx boxes or whatever. He lets that be seen and weaves that into the aesthetic of the comic.
Makes me wonder if this informs some of his comics making too.
It definitely does when you saw the cities, because like he built Palucoville and there's a geography to Palucoville and he maintained that very rigidly. So skip ahead because I think this is super funny. to skip ahead to right here, where like this is what's funny is that Seth, he's known for being like nostalgic for a time that was before his life and stuff. So now he's updated a little bit, and he made it to the DVD realm when nobody has DVD ports in their laptops or anything.
I literally
anymore.
have to plug in an external DVD player if I want to watch a DVD.
I mean,
at this stage.
that's nostalgia now.
So he's advanced to a point but only so far as to give you a DVD that it would be kind of hard to play.
Yes. I wonder if this is available online. I assume that it probably is. And I'll be honest, I did not track this down. I haven't watched this short film. But nevertheless, we're not quite done with this book.
There's not like a QR code somewhere on here.
You know what? I didn't see that. That might be a little bit too technical, too futuristic, Tom.
Yeah, it's like 2005.
That'll be in like the 2030 edition of Palucoville. We'll have QR codes. So the last major section of this book is selections from Sketchbook 13.
Yeah.
These are flower names, and this is basically an exercise, as you were mentioning, Ed, where he was taking... He made 5 of these combinations of names from this list of flowers, and then he would do a short story in the sketchbook, and you can see the reproduction is the sketchbook. You can see the edges of it in here, so you know he's working on the actual pages, and I love this. I'm absolutely in love with this page.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, and doesn't it? It just looks like the exact comics that came before. So like, maybe he's doing all this work in sketchbooks these days, and right here he's giving himself the exercise.
Right, and well, in this case, this first story, Blue Delft, we're doing blue and black, and it does look like the aesthetics from the beginning. Maybe a little bit more polished in the front, but I mean, I'm so glad he's printing these.
Totally.
Because if I saw this in his sketchbook, it'd be like, dude, I want to read that.
Yeah.
Like share that. That's perfect.
Right.
And so he's at a place where he's happy to do that. And man, as a maker, this is pure inspiration to me.
Totally. And that's what I'm getting from this. He's
great panels.
He's arrived at a sense of freedom that I always wished for him and the other cartoonists of his generation, because it's trust the selfish motivation, right? This could mean that you could get more Seth comics now.
Yes.
Because maybe he could do these a little bit faster than he did his more rigid earlier works.
I do wonder, is he penciling these a little bit? Is he laying something down? Because
I think so. The compositions are
some
too
of them
tight.
really bleed into each other in ways where it's like, wow, just leaving the gutter there and having these images that stretch across multiple panels seems like it would be hard. I also wonder about the dry media that he's using, like a dry brush or whatever. It's to beautiful effect.
Yeah, he's able to get that same texture at times with the color implement, with the marker.
I guess my last question here would be like, what's the size of the actual sketchbooks?
I bet you it's
are we
the
looking
size.
at 100%?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's like one of those little pocket sketchbooks.
Yeah, like he can ask for anything he wants, and in terms of dimensions and stuff like that. And I think this book is printed at this size because it gives a nice border to this sketchbook.
Yeah, I think you're right. The lettering seems like it's sized to be this size.
Right.
So, yeah, it's really a fun. As a fan of comics, it's very fun comics throughout this thing, and does some interesting stuff in terms of within this short story. Still innovative. Like you turn the page, and here's a list of all these characters that inhabit this house or have inhabited this house. So. Yeah, a cartoonist, this is what you want to see out of somebody who's been doing comics now. I think he probably starts in the late 80s, early
Mr.
90s.
X, Vortex Comics.
So you've got 30 plus years under your belt. Let's see some of that confidence on the page. Let's see some of those lessons that you've internalized, put down, and I think you really see them here.
I think this completely transcends the medium of comics. This doesn't feel like a commercial product. It feels like a fine arts exploration. It feels like a monograph of an artist. It's so much more than a comic to me. And another piece of inspiration I get from this, and certainly helped out both with the DVD and with that middle piece with the photographic elements, just in terms of book making, it changes my thoughts about future books and things that I'll be putting together.
I'm glad to see Seth at this point as well, in that a lot of the alternative cartoonists, I think they toiled in obscurity whenever they start out. Like, where are you going to find alternative comics? Where are you going to find an audience for them, especially, But over time, like, their quality design, their eye, their vision, their unique sensibility and style, they have found success as book designers They found audiences that exist outside of the direct market, and that allows you to do a hardcover book whenever you're releasing the next issue or the next installment of your comics. It allows you to experiment and reproduce your sketchbooks because you've built this audience that's bigger than just the direct market that we had in the 90s.
I do wonder about him, Chester Brown, those guys, like, because I know what my books do. I know what my books bring in, and I wonder how they make their shit work. I do. Like, I'm very curious about that stuff. I wonder if he has patrons who buy the original art, and support him at that level. I wonder if it's by being in Canada, he's getting special grant monies and shit like that they have set aside for the arts, because he baffles me by putting out such little work.
He does a lot more commercial work than I think we're aware of.
Yeah, he has to.
If you dig into sometimes you'll see him profiled outside of comics, and it's like he has kind of a robust career outside of comics, and I assume that's where it comes from. It's weird to speculate about this stuff because, like you say, Canada, there's probably some stuff that happens.
Doesn't have any medical bills.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, there's lots of ways to do that, and at some point I'd be interested in talking about my own experience, because I don't have a hit comic, but I'm able to pay my bills
Right.
through comics, even though sometimes that means freelance work that comes from the comics or different ways. So there's lots of ways, I think, to monetize art. And I wish that we had more conversation of that, because certainly when I was trying to look at, like, this is what I want to do with my life, all I heard about is how you can't monetize art.
Right,
and I think you might be better off now trying to monetize that stuff than a lot of different industries that are out there and used to be safe bets. But that's a totally different conversation. Bottom line here is Palucoville 24 had a good time with it. And I like Seth's work a lot. So hopefully this video does well, everybody. That's a hint, share this. And we'll do more of his work. I'd love to look at Wimbledon Green.
Yeah, you know, like when they first contacted us, because the publisher sent this, we should be able to get a shoot interview.
I'd like to talk to him.
I was just thinking, like, does he have a webcam? Do you have to crank it?
Yeah, right.
I considered looking
Pedal
up the
power.
map. Like, where does he live? Because I think he lives between the Canadian border and Toronto. I feel like he lives south of Toronto. And if so, it's like, that's not that far.
4 hours,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. Out there,
Maybe 3.5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, would love to talk to him and would love to bring more Seth onto this channel. So, guys, you know what to do. Make this video popular.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. We have more than 1,000 videos in our filmography right now. So we might have talked about your favorite comics. Hit the little magnifying glass on the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. Pop in your favorite titles. If we didn't talk about your favorite comics, please put something in the comments, and we will push those books higher on our reading list. We have a Patreon for the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, and this will help mitigate the kayfabe effect. Right now we have two dozen or so people in the private recording stream for the King Kayfabers, and they are able to mitigate the kayfabe effect by getting access to the books that we talk about before we put these videos out to the public. So that's a way to get in early, and they also get the fully produced videos before anybody else. Ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make, and it's going to be a heck of a Christmas this year, man, because the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming to you in time for Xmas. It's going to include all 4 volumes of Hip Hop Family Tree, plus 150 pages of additional material that is not in those first 4 volumes. So it is officially the 10-year anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree. It's the 50th anniversary of hip hop as a culture, so it was a must to do this book up fly for these anniversaries. Not the only holiday book to come out for 2023. I have the X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback coming to you. Don't have a galley copy of that yet because it's yet to be printed, coming out in November, but still early enough to get in for the holidays. It's going to have all of my X-Men Grand Design comics in there. A couple volumes are out of print right now. Red Room is the current comic. There are 2 trade paperbacks of Red Room out there, but this latest miniseries is called Crypto Killers. 3 issues out right now, and if you go to the center spread, Jimmy, it highlights the characters that are in my daily comic strip that I'm going to be putting out probably starting January 1st of 2024. But for the early adopters on my Patreon, I just completed the first episode of the Switchblade Shorties, and I can't wait for you guys to check it out. Tom, what do you got?
I got the hardcover of I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and the Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics in paperback will be coming out in September. I also have Jack Kirby's Star Warriors: The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion, coming out from Image Comics. It's an old Jack Kirby comic series that I've sort of brought into the modern day in a deluxe package.
You can pre-order my latest book now from Image Comics. That's Street Angel Princess of Poverty. This will be out in November, and it collects all of the Street Angel material that is not in Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, also from Image. The books are designed to be a set. They'll look nice on your shelf together, but you got to let your store know that you want Princess of Poverty now. You can also pick up the Hulk Grand Design. This book is out of print at the distribution level, which means if you haven't gotten it yet, copies are going to start becoming scarce and harder to find and maybe go up in value. So grab that now. Who knows when it'll be reprinted, if ever. And my latest comic, True Crime Funnies, there are digital copies available at jimrugg.com or at patreon.com/jimrugg. And I will be reprinting this for the fall, hopefully for Baltimore Comic Con. So if you missed out the first time, there will be more True Crime Funnies coming soon.
Not the only ways to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Jimmy, illuminate the people.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
There you have it. Support the channel. Keep these videos coming to you on a regular basis. Give them those marching orders, Jimmy, and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics. All you King Kayfabers, if you're not familiar with Seth, one of the things that we didn't talk about much, whenever he starts out making comics, it is in a scene with Chester Brown and Joe Mad in Canada, and some of the fun of that stuff is that fantasy of like you and your buddies are all making comics. Mm-hmm. You would get comics from them that would overlap and tell like the same lunch stories and things of that nature. So interesting group of cartoonists for sure.
Yeah, used to be the urban legend that Joe Matt was really a nom de plume of Chester Brown and Seth making comics together.
Which is the greatest of urban legends for comics. You know what? We're going to save that one because I think that one's juicy.
That's going to be good.
Guys, up next, we're going to be looking at Brian Boland's Actress and the Bishop. Man, just a beautiful comic all around, and a chance to really look at his artwork up close because, as Ed said in our weekly, almost an artist edition. I don't know if it'll show up perfectly on screen or not, but you will see if you have a copy of this, you'll see the ink brush marks, you can see lettering guidelines, and there's a great bonus in the back of like penciled rough layouts. Have you seen these, Tom?
No, I haven't
Is this
seen
new to
them.
you? So you get a chance to see Brian Boland working in between pencils and layouts. I think he considers it layouts, but
Yeah,
it'll be
pretty
on the
tight.
video, but a kind of a cool book.
Yeah, it's always nice seeing comics output from him.
Yeah, he's such a master of black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that, Boland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read Wimbledon Green?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
That's a fun
I
comic.
think that's like when we were all getting together.
Yeah.
That was like probably like a new comic.
Check this out, man. This is that Katsuya Terada guy who did that cover for Jeff. That's one of the books I got this last round. I went to an art show of his. I've been wanting to do an episode on this, but I just don't know if it'll be a hit episode, you know?
Right.
Because he has a big footprint, you know, like Virtua Fighter and shit like that, like is no slouch. That might even be Jeff.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Farrell
That's what I
Dalrymple.
thought too, yeah. It's funny how there's like certain mark making that's
Mm-hmm.
like if you're doing pen work in a sketchbook, it feels like you're mark making, especially if your rendering is like this. That's pretty nice. It might be a brush pen or something. Some kind of heavier marker. I also wonder if this is straight to ink drawing.
Yeah, probably. It's like the forms are kind of noodly forms.
He's a real confident artist. The art show that I went to.
Yeah, it's so Farrell-esque in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally. The art show that I went to, it was the stuff where he was taking like a piece of wood and kind of gessoing it or putting some kind of white primer that would have thick brush strokes. Yeah, it's like Meat House type shit. Mm-hmm. It had thick brush strokes, and then he just did pencil drawings over top, and it's like you don't get two chances on that shit, you know? And he would be able to incorporate the chaos of those brush strokes, create
It's
metal
almost Farrell's
textures.
signature.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's...
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there's some beautiful stuff in here.
He was engaged to Steven Seagal's daughter.
Oh, okay.
And he said that well, somebody said that everything that we know or think of Steve Seagal, it's like times 10.
Yeah, imagine that as your father-in-law.
In privacy.
Yeah, I don't think you're surprising anybody with that statement.
Jim, tell the Tom, tell the famous Steve Seagal, Howard Stern.
Oh, yeah, he was Steven Seagal was saying to somebody, "I just read the greatest script of all time." Oh, who wrote it? I did.
I've heard that story from different people.
Yeah.
And the one guy that was telling it said he showed up at his house, like his agent or something, showed up at his house and he was crying. Mm-hmm. And that's why.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He was so moved
by his script.
The smell of his own farts.
That's amazing. It's funny, his whole trajectory. Because I guess he was teaching some studio head,
Aikido.
Right. And the guy was just captivated by him. Mm-hmm. And I guess he's right. I mean, he's certainly made a bunch of movies that made money, but just a bizarre dude.
There's a lot of that. Like Kevin Smith tells a story about that producer called John Peters, who he was the producer on like Batman, Warner Brother Batman, and all that stuff. He was Barbra Streisand's hairdresser. Mm-hmm. And before, like...
That's so strange.
Dude, bullshit baffles brains, man. Frank Duke's got a movie made about him. You know what I mean?
Watch what you say, Ed.
Right?
Coming out of like the
this
evil
could be fighting words
era and stuff,
Yeah, no doubt.
Should this be on a black background? Should we maybe do some colors first?
Yeah, I guess we should.
Because it really kind of gets lost.
Hold on, I'm going to zoom a little. Sorry.
It's all good, man. I'm going to go grab my Ronin real quick. Let me get out.
Okay.
I feel like it's got to be more or less straight or it'll drive me crazy.
Oh, like the cant to the background stuff.
Yeah, because we have so many lines. Mm-hmm. Like if they're running diagonal to the book, it's a lot for me to mitigate my OCD. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm good to go if you are.
Hello and welcome to your favorite comic book YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
And I'm Tom Scholey, author of I Am Stan.
Today we're going to continue our journey through Frank Miller's Ronin, a seminal work in the early 80s, but one that landed kind of odd. So we're going to be going through issue by issue to see exactly how he lands this thing, and today is issue number 4. Before we begin, I want to remind everybody that you can catch us at Baltimore Comic-Con September 8th, 9th, and 10th. It is a great show for comic book fans, so if you haven't been there before, come on out and make sure you wear your Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and hats and fly these colors. I also want to remind everybody that we have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon. There are 3 different levels that will give you access to our videos early, and at the King Kayfaber level, you'll get access to all of our videos first, including the recording session. You can sit in, add your comments as we talk about these comics, and if there's one that you want to add to your collection, you'll be the very first person tracking that one down before they disappear and before the prices go up. And with that out of the way, let's dive in. Frank Miller's Ronin, Book 4. Man, I was just on board. This is some of the first Frank Miller that I ever found, as we've established in previous videos. And this is kind of an unprecedented comic at that time in terms of creator freedom, Miller having some creator ownership in this, production values off the chart, but the book kind of mixed reviews whenever it was published. So we're going to try to figure out what happened,
and
what hits and what doesn't.
At some point, you gotta put the onus to a certain extent on the audience. At times, man, the Wednesday Warrior is a fickle beast, and they want the same stuff basically. Even when like that New 52 came out and shit, there would be so much rhetoric online, but they still bought it. It was like they were crying about having to buy a bunch of new canon or something like that. So the onus is the audience is not without blood on their hands.
Very well said.
Because this is a new kind of comic.
It is. And a quick recap is this is a future New York City that has fallen into decay. And our hero here on page 1 is a Ronin that has been transplanted from, 800 years in the past to inhabit a body with cybernetic arms, again in this future high-tech world that has also fallen on hard times. And in issue 3, it ends with the security agent from Aquarius Complex, the big science company, being pulled underground, where we know there are like cannibalistic underground dwellers, something threatening underground, and our hero Ronin follows her into the subterranean tunnels to hopefully save the day if possible. Her name is Casey, the security guard that has gone missing underground.
So with all that said, we can't say that Frank Miller's blameless in, in some of the chaos of this thing. I
have been a little underwhelmed by, I love the first issue, and issues 2 and 3, I was not as impressed with.
That's interesting to me because, like, I'm so, like, 100% on board with this thing from start to finish. And even the thing of, like, how it was received at the time. Like, I only learned about that in maybe the past 5 years. And to me, it's kind of like how it was received back then is kind of like beside the point. Like, who even cares? You know, it's like, what's this thing doing now? You know,
it is a good point in that probably ahead of its time by a wide margin.
Yeah.
Because when it comes out, I think part of the when I say a bad reception is this is an expensive book. This is high-end production. It's 48 pages. It's very atypical for a comic, and I don't think it's sold the way they had hoped it would sell. Mm-hmm. So part of it not landing is it's a financial hit. You know, from a DC Comics production standpoint in, say, 1983 when this is first published. Since then, obviously, there have been tons of editions and collections and artist editions. I'm sure it's turned out well, but I think that's proof, too, of it being ahead of its time. Audiences were sort of like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah,
the ahead of the time, it's just like, in terms of the merits of the work, you know, it's like the work itself.
Right.
Yeah. Context is not invalid. Some of the other books that were out at the time, like, you would have Raw with Jose Munoz artwork that would have a kind of similar effect, but Miller is certainly pulling from heavy metal,
definitely
Mobius in particular, and a little Goseki Kojima. But it seems like the further we get into this, we're going further toward the European and moving away from, in fact, even the panel account, right? Like that is far more than you get in typical manga, but that's a Dark Knight.
Yeah, it's going to be Dark Knight, and we have these black panels, which extremely economical if you're the guy who has to draw this stuff, but just so effective in setting this scene. And then you're hearing all the voices. You only see Casey, and then once she makes that human contact with him, then you can start seeing him because now he's sort of a physical presence in the room where he was just a voice.
Yeah, clearly that's kind of her point of view.
And there's supposedly 3 of them in this darkness, but you see they've been stripped of clothing, at least Casey has, and it looks like Johnson has. But the third guy, Simmons, we're not getting Simmons' hands. Mm-hmm. So you get that sense of like, whatever's going on down there is unpleasant.
And he's doing kind of the Joker thing. And I like the he that's got the lines over it and how it fades.
Now, Jimmy, if we had any reservations about like what is going on with New York City there, I think it's very clear that Aquarius is kind of taken over the city.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to look on the earlier issue.
This is very relevant too. That's like gray goo. Yeah, you see it. It's
usually the same camera angle because you see the water towers and stuff.
You could animate all these shots.
Yeah, totally. I've seen it done. As an animated GIF for sure.
Yeah, I bet that's a really interesting animation because like one of the things we established with Aquarius is it's living biocircuitry. Like it repairs itself, it grows itself. It's kind of running its own show at this point. This is AI very, very early on.
Yeah, and this is
and AI out of control.
This is it's nanotechnology too, and this is the end game of nanotechnology. It eventually will process everything on the planet Earth and just turn it into gray goo. There'll be a uniform gray goo that where human civilization used to be.
Yeah, you can see whole buildings are being swallowed up.
Varley's color palette is getting way more subtle and nuanced as these issues are coming out too.
Yeah, it is interesting to watch that development. Something that we will we'll be playing more and more of a role as we get towards the climax of this story. And now we're inside Aquarius. this is the scientist who developed this technology. This is the guy who runs and owns this equipment, and he has been consumed by a demon that runs parallel with Ronin from the past.
And he's straight up, Caligula or Caesar or somebody at this point with his nanotech crown of thorns.
They've been very cautious to not weaponize this until he was possessed by the demon, and now they've started making weapons, which in many ways, like, I feel like this is the most relevant Ronin's been.
Very relevant.
Like, we get very scary. You think of AI as applied to weapon technology today. That's kind of what we're dealing with in the story at this point.
Miller, when he's in Aquarius, he is using that like one rapidograph to give you that deadline and that hatching.
And then using like circuitry as a form of hatching too, drawing all these like little circuits and circles and lines and stuff.
Yeah, real shorthand for that circuitry, but why not? Like, what's biocircuitry look like in 1983?
And then we get this great severe light source after all this kind of, green.
Which, if you remove the color, it's another one of those Sin City panels.
Yeah. We should say, too, the guy who developed the technology here for Aquarius is Casey's husband.
Yeah, last time we saw him, he was in Embrace, maybe fairly impotent, not giving her the goods when they were in bed.
And he is breaking down here. And this is the screen personification of Aquarius, Virgo.
Which was copied in Will Smith's AI, or not AI, iRobot. They take the Virgo thing like one for one in there.
And this is them watching Aquarius, like, building itself, building weapons, and just really taking over its own destination, its own agency.
Yeah, riding on these speeder bikes. Return of the Jedi just came out, so.
I wonder about this background and what he's doing there, how he's making that visually. What is that?
Makes you want to take a look at the artist edition again, which, by the way, we do have a video on. We took a look at the original artwork for all of Ronin. And I put it on the Kayfabe socials. I found a photo of Miller during Ronin time with Ronin pages all over his studio at Upstart Studios. It's a great photograph, man.
That's super cool. Yeah, you have to imagine, like, those guys sharing studio space together, a bunch of creative young visionary artists, and then, like, one of your members starts turning out work that looks like this kind of stuff. It's so bombastic visually for what comics were at that time.
Because everybody in that studio, you had Walt Simonson, Howard Chaykin, like, these are iconoclastic creators who were going against the grain and who were their own artists to begin with. And, Miller and Starlin, they spent a lot of time at Marvel, and they had a kind of a house style that, like, developed further.
This is where, like, this is the section of this issue that, like, blows my mind, where this starts. This like, it blew my mind the first time I saw it. Still blows my mind. Like, how do you do this? And so we have, like, these colors that are, like, perfectly chosen to represent, a sort of fire, like an actual fire. The color choices are, and then the application of shadow too. It's sort of a chaotic, but you can still see the color, the light source for the shadow, and it's kind of like simulating what sort of a light source fire is, how it does kind of move and undulate, so it's not like they're uniform. Yeah, it's just blows my mind.
Yeah, and it's an interesting piece of art, this panel, because if you isolated, say, this section, and I said who drew that, you might say like Ted McKeever.
Right.
It feels a little divorced from what we know to be Frank Miller, even when it comes to Ronin. But once again, because of that flicker of that flame, you got these giant pools of black, which suggests some groundbreaking mark making.
We haven't seen these marks yet. This in Ronin. This super cool.
This is super heavy on, like, the future Sin City art style.
Yeah, giant thick brush marks for a lot of these shadows.
And he really invented, like, with Daredevil, invented his own language of, like, sewers with all those pipes.
Yeah, This is a Miller trope at this point, like to have the Morlocks, and to have the hero invade, and to have the damsel in distress, like, amongst those Morlocks.
And we had made that big production about, give me your hand, and the one guy's not producing his hand. And after Ronin makes short work of these cannibals, he's kind of like looking, picks up a body part, and there's a hand. It's the hand that we've been talking about, which is, pretty good for writing, I feel like. It's spread across a couple of pages, it ties back together, and it brings these two different parties ultimately together as this scene cross-cutting, but eventually we're going to run into each other.
The rhythm gets so interesting, like right around here. These like really kind of cinematic, like storyboard almost moments, and then you're cutting into other stuff, and then you're cutting back and forth with this sort of Aquarius story. It's really interesting.
And with this stuff, it's Lynn Varley. She's got work to do, so she's giving you two different palettes, but it still looks good as a whole, But it's very clear when you see the hot colors that you're following the Ronin.
And it does look like Miller is just experimenting so much in terms of drawing.
He did these same kind of marks, like with those chuds from Daredevil, with the oatmeal all over them.
Mm-hmm. The going between like the darks and the lights not being clearly foreground or background or middle ground is pretty wild to me from a visual standpoint.
Yeah.
And this is it's readable, but it's kind of chaotic, kind of messy. But this is actually, if you're gonna go messy, this is kind of a good moment to do that with these like zombies.
Exactly.
Plus, you're underground with no real light source. You have a flame that's flickering, and you have a lot of darkness. So maybe we shouldn't know exactly what's going on everywhere. And again, with the hands, it's almost the motif throughout this whole issue so far, and the hands taking over completely and blocking out the light.
This is such an effective page turn. Like, hit it, and then it's almost like your pupils start to pinhole.
We have our creator now is like under, kind of locked in. They're a little bit worried about what he's doing, and he's still trying to talk to Virgo and get this under control and trying to figure out what exactly happened, because things have gone off the rail from the beginning of issue 1 to this point, and so he's getting Virgo to like, this is basically expositional recap. So good for a new reader, maybe good for us, kind of makes sense within the story, because he discounted the whole samurai Ronin story in the beginning as like, so what, that's just weird, made up stuff. But at this point, something has definitely changed, and he's getting that whole story again.
I think this figure drawing is some of the...
Mobius or something.
Yeah, but probably like the most elegant. You never think of the word elegant when you think of Frank Miller.
Yeah, the drapery and everything, and the pose.
Yeah.
Casey was like the Philip Marlowe detective of like the past few issues. Now he's the detective. He's like, putting all the pieces together, getting his cigarette out.
A very strange fashion choice for the shoes. The cross between slippers and flip-flops. Just the big toe.
The toe is what holds it in,
It looks like maybe 2 toes go in there. Kind of a futuristic piece there.
This drawing, when I first got hold of this comic, this drawing was a revelation to me, because when you're a kid and you're drawing characters, like, you really aren't observing the human figure so much. So we all draw the legs going straight down. But to see this kind of S curl of the body and how it's balanced, it's really the first time that I paid attention to that. Because when I saw this piece, I'm like, that feels like it's really standing. I was like reverse engineering that figure. So like, divorced from like the circuitry, all that shit, just the pose and the balance of it was very, very important to me as a kid. And of course, when you notice this stuff and then you adopt it in your own drawing, you take it too far and everybody has scoliosis or something.
Yeah, you get some interaction here between the guy who's running it and...
Look at the printing compared to the trade paperback. It's like very dark, like on the neck and stuff.
Yeah, it makes me wonder about that, because if you pull in... Let's look at 3 of them.
Yeah, mine's like the most recent printing of it.
Yeah, you can see a lot of variation, and I can't imagine that they're doctoring colors for this edition because it's very close. I would guess this is just variation of printer.
Yeah.
Yes, some of the black in my version here is pretty weak compared to like my original issues.
Yeah, very saturated.
We've been talking throughout this about like, when's Lynn Varley get to see printed pages that then she can adjust, and apply to the issues going forward. And at this point, issue 4, I would guess she has seen some.
Yeah, she never goes crazy with this comic. That comes later. It's more about like having more colors at her disposal for this project than like doing noodly Lynn Varley stuff.
And Virgo's been like this benevolent figure like through the series up to this point. Now she's starting to show kind of a dark side. She puts this guy up to spying on his boss with the promise that he might get to be the new boss.
Yeah, and his name's Gibbons. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of curious. Like, is that a reference to Dave Gibbons? Were they friends in '83?
It's gotta be. I mean, or peers at least. And so here's this shitbag recording this whole conversation we've been seeing going on,
which we believe, or at least the characters believe, is not being recorded.
Yeah.
Tough for them. And there's our demon stand-in. Pretty easy transition to do the same pose and be like, this is actually who this guy is.
Yeah,
Good
reinforcing that. It's been a while,
Good
I think,
visual.
since we've been reminded visually.
We haven't
that
seen
he's
that
the
demon in at least an issue.
And worth noting that Frank Miller does still have a little stank of the Jim Shooter era when it comes to his writing. Like the first time that in this issue that Ronin is mentioned, they explain what a Ronin is in the dialogue bubble in the way that Jim Shooter would want you to do. That's happened every chapter up to now.
Yes, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's some DC editorial too. You know, you're putting out a Strange book here, so they're probably trying to keep it in something they can sell.
The idea of a Ronin was kind of like, we take it on face value now, but it was kind of like, okay, what is that? I might know what a samurai is. What's a Ronin? You know?
Yeah. How about this for a 2-page sequence without any words?
Great
Just sound
rhythm.
effects
Yeah.
here.
It's a Dave Lapham grid.
Gets into that nightmarish area, but we also see Casey fighting back against her captors, so some agency on her part as well.
First person point of view shot. See, I say that because it's close to my heart right now with some stuff I'm working on.
Great stuff here.
And here comes one of these zombies running out of the darkness. What's he running from? What's scarier than an underground cannibalistic human? Somebody with a sword who knows how to use it. Cuts him in half.
Yeah, you get the glint of the sword, this little red slash, and then the reveal of the hero as the guy's getting split in half. It's just amazing.
And then back into the darkness.
I love the retreat, because like you see that so rarely in comics too, like something moving backward. Like you could see a guy coming at you, but a guy moving back into the darkness. You know.
Ed, it makes me wonder if this entire 5 panels is a point of view shot, because then we cut to Casey clearly looking at this action. So in a way, that's another one of those point of view shots. This reminds me also of the issue 1 manga layouts. The drawing style is very different than that, but I feel like maybe the concept layout wise is something that Miller's still trying to work through and incorporate.
Right.
Especially when Ronin's being really in like the samurai glory, at least in the action side of it.
Yeah, this is like the 2001 HAL 9000 kind of stuff, going up against the computer. And
yeah, exactly right. And no speeder bikes you're talking about, Tom, earlier. Feels like that is clearly what we've got here.
And we clearly have American flag influence straight from Howard Chaykin with this sequence here. Also, he's achieving this depth with white zipatone dots on top of his line art, which once again we have an artist edition video for Ronin that we did where we really explore that original artwork and all the methods and materials that went into it. So make sure you check that stuff out. But dude, like it's shades of what's to come, dude.
Story wise, it's a cool development too, because it's like the guy who they were spying on died in the same accident that the guy who was doing the spying. So like Virgo's like covering her tracks. You know, she's doing like a Game of Thrones kind of thing of like killing the guy that was doing the spying for her too. And only identified by their dental fillings. I wonder what like the first incidence of that in like fiction was, because I feel like it is maybe like a
Very
70s
popular.
80s
Yeah,
thing.
it's
you know?
become very popular.
Or if it like, was earlier than
I would bet you that that's Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
All right, back underground, and now these cannibals are not sure
Love all this stuff.
what's going on. Yeah, this is your action stuff. This is kind of like your Daredevil 2.0 if you're coming here as a fan of Frank Miller's Daredevil. This is going to be as close as you get to scratching that itch in terms of action.
And yeah, how do you communicate a guy backing up and he's just communicating really well and into the darkness, and then what happens once he's in the darkness?
You know,
is
I'd
so
say
interesting.
go watch Glimmerman. You wanna see
How about that for a first person POV
Yeah, so
shot?
great. Like just how do you have the like he's in the zone, you know?
Yeah, and he's using he's playing his hits, dude, where he's tossing that sword. We seen him do that one time.
It's so great too because Casey knows what to do with it. It's like they've been working together here.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
Daredevil and Elektra.
without any
Right.
verbal communication. It's like now we've both got swords and we can cut these guys up from both sides.
Superhero sex, man. Once again, you remove the color. This is a full Sin City page.
Yes, and it's really cool to go from this kind of lighted figure to the silhouettes. There's a lot of dark color added to that panel, but if you see that in black and white, it's pretty striking, the black-white balance across the spread.
I mean, this is Lynn Varley. Like she has fully arrived with that piece, but for most of the rest of the book, we're just going to get her application of like kind of flat color.
This is our 300 Linvar.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, it's like something that we're going to see 15 years down the road.
Yeah, the covers of Big Fat Kill and Beyond and stuff. You know, Yellow Bastard, all that stuff, for sure.
Just interesting contrasting this with like the last time we saw this guy in this situation where it was so like light and colorful, and now it's like dark. We're just like moving through such an interesting range.
And it's early enough in their collaboration that Miller is using black for that, because you can imagine that if you let this girl go full bore, like you just leave it open. You know, when he and Lynn do that Elektra Lives Again, it's all clear line, and he's not really putting much blacks in there or anything, letting her do all the work.
And we got the old technology. And, you know, again, HAL 9000, like erasing parts of Virgo's memory with gunshots.
Yeah, that subtext is pretty good in here. It's a weird bit because, like, I don't know, thinking of sci-fi and Frank Miller, and I don't know that he goes back to sci-fi very much.
That's one of the reasons this is like one of my favorite Frank Millers, is because like I love sci-fi and he very rarely touches. It's like Lance Blastoff or something.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and that's not really
that's goof. Yeah, it's like a goof, but Martha Washington.
You just never see these colors in a comic, certainly from this period.
Yeah, for sure. You see him mirroring like page layouts and stuff across spreads. I think he's clearly working spread wise all throughout this book.
Yeah,
which probably was something novel and new compared to a monthly Marvel DC book that you have no control over where those ads are going.
Can you go back just one real quick, man? One of the things I like with these kinds of spreads is you have your like introductory sequence to move you into it, and then you have your exit panel that is full bleed, which creates a nice unit as a 2-page spread. And
it's amazing to watch them opening and closing eyes. It's a detail that you just don't see here, but you would have like film editors talk about that at length.
Yeah.
I wonder what Miller's thinking with those moments.
This is great, like just the way these read as animation, and then reading in with this guy, and then reading as like, now he's gotcha. And so we, you know, got this like really scary repeated image of this demon.
Yeah, and it's almost that cartoony thing of like, no, yes. And imagine Bugs Bunny yelling back and forth with Daffy Duck.
Yeah, and once again, like that duotone board is shot on film because you could see the undeveloped lines and stuff. So it's not reduced to black and white line reproduction.
It's a really beautiful aesthetic, and it's like, ooh, let's see a whole comic like this. There's a lot of parts in this book.
Yeah, and the way that you could tell also is like the black of the gutters is different from the black of like these panels. Like if you look really, really closely.
That black in the gutters may be from the green. I'm so curious about all the stuff that they're doing.
Right.
Because some of this stuff really is experimenting in ways that we may not even think about. You know, like let's print the black with the yellow over top of it to separate those two pieces.
Right.
So we were talking about superhero sex, and so here's like an actual sex or an actual like love scene, like actually in a comic, you know, which you couldn't have done in Daredevil or something.
Yeah, I feel like specifically the famous Steranko Nick Fury sequence is at the front of his thoughts.
Yeah, same layout.
Yeah, especially in the beginning whenever we have our sword here in position.
Because before it was put the gun in the holster, right? Like that's the famous Steranko story.
Put the sword in the scabbard. But she's tensed, possibly for combat, possibly for war, and then she relaxes the sword, and now it's just
that's a move, you know, like you don't want to get grabbed too hard with that fierce of a hand,
and just close up, and then we have like the Gustav Klimt reference. great final, like all the final panels, that these big still shots that they have at the end of each issue are just really great.
Imagine the smells of those bodies, dude. Like they're deep in the sewer, man, with your body fluids juicing all over the place.
Thanks,
and this
Ed.
stuff
I wasn't thinking about that.
Some foul ass shit.
Well, that's the benefit. That's why they haven't invented smell-o-vision.
They're
yet.
getting
nobody
COVID,
wants it.
They're getting COVID 2040 with that shit. and you know, crossing the swords.
But yeah, we got the swords crossed. We got a sword in the scabbard, a sword out of the scabbard, and
yeah, that's your end of issue 4. So we've kind of unified the two, I don't know, fighters, the two that are maybe the best hope against this rogue demon in Aquarius.
And the threads, the various threads of the story kind of start to come together, and we start to sort of set the stage for possibly questioning what we've seen up to this point.
This is very steeped in that Mobius aesthetic, but I promise you with book 5, we're going to bring back some of that Goseki Kojima kineticism that you see kind of right here, the frantic brush strokes hatching and shit like that. Like we're gonna get a samurai romp.
My favorite part so far has definitely been the mark making that Miller brings in. Even on this cover, you see the difference between like these fine lines. I think we call that screen door inking versus the inking behind him, and the eyebrows still another piece of that visual. So it's been fun watching that part develop for sure.
Yeah, and he is this is such a necessary book for his career because he is just putting down so much stuff on the page that he never had the opportunity to before. He's able to see how it's reproduced and decide whether he wants to bring this or that back to his future works. And he brings a smattering,
For sure. Feels like he's going fast as well.
Yeah.
48 pages each. I think the schedule was supposed to be 6 weeks. I think it actually takes longer.
Way longer,
which makes me believe he is working as fast as he can. So if it's like, I got an idea how to do this scene, you put it down and keep rolling. There's a fun energy to that.
Totally. Like right now, like I'm doing that daily strip, and if a life thing happens that day, you still got to get a strip done. So you have to figure your way around that. And it's a blast.
I've been watching a lot of interviews with Frank Miller lately, and one of the more recent ones, he just kind of says, I just make this shit up as I go, and that's beautiful.
It is. Yeah, I agree. And it's something that we always don't take into account when we're reading a book that's 40 years old and being like, let's really comb through this thing. Mm-hmm. The intentions may be completely different than how we're interpreting this 4 decades later.
We did the Alan Moore masterclass, and he was talking about setting things up and then letting the characters do their thing. And he spoke about a couple comic pieces. He mentioned Watchmen, and he's like, oh, I don't think Rorschach's going to get out of this. Like, that wasn't planned at the beginning. At a certain point, that was just the logical conclusion that a maniac like that isn't going to be allowed to survive this.
I think of a lot of like reading mangaka and kind of their process, and how there's a lot of stuff they sort of throw up in the air, spin some plates, and then some of them catch on and some don't. And it's not carefully planned, but it is set up that we can follow this thread or that.
Yeah, man. Great. Neil Gaiman talks about throwing softballs up in the air.
Holds together really well thematically, given all of that. Like there are a lot of balls in the air in this, and it does. It rewards rereading. It all goes together really nicely.
I meant to call attention to some of these bits in previous chapters and stuff. What is interesting is that almost all of the comments are they slightly hedge and don't say that it's great or anything, but they applaud the experimentation. So like when you really read these comments and these like pull quotes and stuff, it's never like this is mind blowing, this is a masterpiece. It's like he's got balls. He's got a lot of nuts.
I think ultimately that's the takeaway of this series. Like the legacy this series has on comics is that, it's better paper, it's better production, it's not being held to the 20 or 22 page count. There's all this stuff that comes out of this that the entire time I'm reading comics is there. Before this comic, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's weird to think, 48 pages is some kind of breakthrough. Like we're going to give Frank Miller credit for that. Well, it didn't exist before then.
Right.
So give credit to somebody. If he was the first guy to really make that a popular format, we've read 1,000 books like that. So there was a lot of groundbreaking that did go on that other people then applied that kind of creative freedom or those lessons to, the next step in evolving comics as an art form. And it's hard to put that in context whenever you come to this later. I wasn't there in 1982 reading comics to be like, seismic shift. But a lot of this stuff, I think that's probably...
Financially.
It's weird.
I think he made some money.
We go back and look at this, and I feel like the Turtles are what I think of with some of this kind of cover. That's a Turtles cover.
That's a Turtles cover, yeah.
Right.
No, it isn't.
Credit.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you guys good for this?
Let's do it. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. We are a daily YouTube channel, and we have covered more than 1,000 videos. Right now, we've covered the previous 3 chapters of Ronin. We did the artist edition, like I said, but more than, I think, 1,300 other comics we've talked about in the past, not to mention interviews, artist editions, things like this. So make sure you give the channel a good search and see if we covered your favorite topics, because, can't imagine everybody got a chance to see every video. We got some good stuff in there. The King Kayfabers on our Patreon have access to our live stream recording sessions, which gives them a leg up on the kayfabe effect. Whenever we're talking about a comic, They see what we're dealing with before anybody else. They could go to eBay, Amazon, their local comic shop, and get it before anybody else. Pays for itself when it's the right comic. Ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make, and the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming to you this Christmas. Actually, due to come out in mid-October. It's going to be collect all 4 volumes of the Hip Hop Family Tree series that I've put out so far. 150 pages of additionals, and a lot of artwork that was created specifically for this book alone. So make sure you get your hands on it. 10-year anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree, 50th anniversary of Hip Hop as a Culture. Not the only holiday effort to come out. There's the X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback that is due out in November. It's going to collect all of my X-Men Grand Design work, and some of those volumes are out of print to date. Red Room is the current comic that I'm working on. Crypto Killers is the new series, but there are 2 trade paperbacks, The Antisocial Network and Trigger Warnings. But the Crypto Killer stuff is going to be 4 issues. This 3rd issue right here has this backup feature called Latchkey Kids, which is a proto version of my daily strip that is now called Switchblade Shorties. And it's the first place you're going to get to read their adventures before I serialize those comics online. But I am serializing these comics to the people on my own Patreon as early adopters. Tom, what do you have?
I have the softcover reprint of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I have the all-new I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And August 28th is Jack Kirby's 106th birthday. It is or was the final order cutoff for Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion from Image Comics. Ask your local comics retailer to set aside a copy for you.
You can pre-order my next book, Street Angel Princess of Poverty from Image Comics. Will be out in November, and will collect all of the Street Angel comics that are not in Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive. This was out of print for almost a year, but it is back from Image as well. They'll make a nice set on your bookshelf. My latest comic, True Crime Funnies, 3 nonfiction comics featured in here, including 2 wrestling stories. You can read this in digital form from jimrugg.com or patreon.com/jimrugg, and a new print edition will be out this fall in time for the holidays. You can also pick up Hulk Grand Design before these are gone. They are sold out at the distribution level. Hard to tell if they'll be reprinted or not. Probably not in time for Christmas if they are. So pick this one up if you haven't already before it is too late.
Not the only way to support the channel. Jimmy, what are the other ways to handle that?
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
There you have it. Many ways to keep the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel coming to you on a daily basis. Give them those marching orders, Jimmy, and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
So are we going to do the unboxing?
Let's do that unboxing, man.
Yeah, I've been enjoying having an excuse to reread Ronin, too.
Yeah, you know what's so funny, dude, is I've been stoked to reread this right here.
Yeah.
And then it just shows up. Like, I was really going to pull them out to reread.
Ed, do you have your copy handy? Because there's a lot of unwrapping. That
Yeah, I do. So if you go into my bedroom on the floor, you'll see it by, like, the stacks of books. You see it? Show the people, man.
We are going to be looking at the most beautiful book I've ever seen. I can't wait to get into some of the details of this thing.
And call it something like that. The best book in our library. The most beautiful book we've ever owned. The slipcase is where you'll really get that head buzz.
Yeah, it's just spectacular.
When you did your Fireball book, how did you cut the pages so that it's flat on the side?
I don't know if I did.
Really? So you
Seems
just
like I should have.
I guess maybe if it's small enough signatures, you don't have to. Maybe.
I'm gonna have to examine that now.
I'm curious.
I was gonna bring one of those.
Yeah, I'm curious.
To show off. I should have. I'm kind of embarrassed to put it next to this. I assume that he built this text block and then trimmed it. In his case, you know what I mean? Like once it was sewed, then I think he cut it with like a probably a hydraulic cutter. Because I mean, you know, that's smooth.
It's smooth as hell, and you could see the see the.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like slicing a cake.
What a fucking book, man! That blew my mind. Like as soon as I opened it up, I'm like, this dude made the book that. Well, I guess we save it.
Yeah, I need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Cropping this.
Yeah, and when we make the thumb, don't show what it is. Just like, you know, very simple, like the best book in our library. Something like that. Something like that. You'll figure it out. I said Tom with his massive package.
I like the way my name looks here. That I could make that my signature.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. This guy's a full artist, man.
He is 100%.
When the package came, 40-pound box for the 3 books.
3 books. Okay, yeah.
Like I gotta lift with my legs.
Yeah. Don't throw your back
And
out.
also I don't want to bang this table, be like knocking the camera off.
All right, man. Let me get my little box cutter for you, actually. Hey, Jim, did you open up your WCW trading cards?
No, I didn't. Wouldn't that lessen their mint condition value?
Yes, but
Did you open yours?
no, I just saw mine over there.
I need to open them. I just wasn't thinking about it. But I'll open them to figure that out. You know what, Tom?
Yeah.
Let's slide that your way a little bit.
Say hello to my little friend.
You do be careful with that.
Okay, so I'm doing the opening.
Listen, man, my name ain't on
Yeah,
it.
that's true. No.
Yeah, if you cut into
Okay.
any part of this fine book, I don't want to be responsible for that.
Yeah, and maybe you don't need it.
Yeah, I might be able to.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it'll
we'll
pill,
see.
I
It's
think
good
it'll
to have this
actually
on
pill,
hand.
pill open.
Okay. Good to go?
Yep.
Hello and welcome to your favorite comic book YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
And I'm Tom Scholey, author of I Am Stan.
And today we are going to look at the finest book I own, maybe the finest book I've ever seen, finest book I've ever touched, an absolute work of art in terms of books. All right, everyone, I want to remind you that we will be at Baltimore Comic-Con September 8th, 9th, and 10th. It is a great comic book convention for comic book fans. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to check it out. And do wear your Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and hats. We love to see those out in the audience. Let everybody know you're part of the group. Also, we have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon. There are 3 different levels that'll get you access to our videos early. At the King Kayfaber level, you will get access to all of our videos first, including sitting in on the recording session, giving us feedback in live time, and definitely being the first person in line when you see a book on our show that you want to add to your collection. You'll be the first one to buy it before it disappears or goes up in price.
Yeah, West Coast Avengers says we should open up our WCW trading cards and he'll send us more packs after.
Well, we are going to open up something today. Tom, this has your name on it.
Written all over it.
We have already we've already opened our copies of this book. It is a masterpiece, and I am eager to see you do the same.
And Jimmy, inside your Hulk Grand Design is the paperwork to come along with this.
Yes. So, Tom.
Yeah, this is part of the reason I'm here today. Ed was like, we got this Miracle Man book for you.
Hold on, cut.
Yeah.
Cut.
What?
Just kayfabe it a little bit,
Okay.
like you don't know what it is.
Okay.
Or,
Right. Yeah, sorry.
just let it be.
Yeah. So, I'm here to find out what's in this mystery package. Can't wait.
It looks like there's some tape on the side, like you could probably just...
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
yeah.
right there is the spot
Let me
to
see.
pull it open.
Yeah, good. I'm glad we got your sleeves in the mixture. there.
Yes, let you know.
A little young. A little bit young.
Here we go.
Do you smell it yet?
Oh yeah, this is really nice. Love the orange.
You need to take the sword to it or no?
Let me see. Maybe just to get this little corner started.
It's so scary to bring a sharp edge next to this.
Whatever this is. It's orange.
Did he spray paint that stuff?
I was going to say, even the packaging on here is like a stenciled.
Yeah, it's got like a tacky quality to it, and then you see that sort of airbrushy.
When we opened the box, which there were 3 packages. When we opened the box, you get hit with a whiff of aerosol, and very curious, like what could this be? The second I opened up that box, and I knew what it was, man. I knew exactly what it was, and this dude made a book I wanted to own my entire life. That does not exist.
Okay, here's a clue. Oh my, this I didn't realize. Whoa, wow. We got atomic spelled backwards.
Komodo.
Pronounced Komoda, like the Komoda dragon.
Show that spine
and
right there.
Look at this spine, beautiful spine. Yeah, this. Oh man.
So what you're looking at is the complete Miracle Man.
Yeah, and you see the logo there on the spine of Optic Press. This is one person's operation. Andrew Bosey is the creator behind this. You'll need that for the 3D issue,
section,
of course.
Yeah. Wow, looks like there's like felt. Yeah, there's felt on the inside of the carrying case.
Amazing.
You need to take the dust jacket off and feel the leather that the book is made
yeah, this
goat
is
skin,
really...
goat skin leather. And by the way, I've been corresponding with Andrew all week. I have a new crush. Like, I'm in love with Optic Press. And he said the best way to treat this leather is to handle this book without those little white cotton gloves that we all wear at the Billy Ireland, because the oils of your hand will actually kind of work that leather.
Reinforce it.
There's some websites at the end there. So this collects, and he edited and designed this thing himself. All of the Miracle Man works that were published here in the States.
Let me highlight some of his contact info first here for everybody. We'll do this again before the video's over, but you can see more examples. He is this small press, opticsbinding.com, and the Instagram opticsbinding. He puts up videos of the books that he makes, so you can see that stuff at home. I know there are other makers out there. Like, I have made a few books myself. Embarrassed to show them on this video next to his. But this is probably the nicest book making that I have ever seen in any way. Our headbands, hand sewn silk. These things are just, I've never seen a book this well constructed.
Show this piece to the King Kayfabers so that they could get on board right now.
Yeah, I'm 3 pages in, and it's already like blowing my mind.
And this is original design. He's choosing the order of operations. He gangs up all the letters pages from the Eclipse books all in one complete section. He had included Komoda, the Tomorrow's book.
Yeah.
And also, he's
hang on. Linger here just to show some of what the extra stuff, extra material is.
He's so thorough that I didn't know this until I got my hands on some Warrior magazines myself. Like, Alan Moore did even more stories with some of those characters.
Yeah.
And like the Warp Smiths or whatever,
right?
Those stories are in here.
Yeah.
They are not published in the Eclipse comics.
Includes the issue #1 that Eclipse published because it was recolored for the trade paperbacks. Spent about a year putting this material together for the book, cleaning certain things up, getting scans of the color samples that he liked, and he does these in editions. I think there were 9 of these that he made.
I think he said 10.
10, very small editions. He did one on Wally Wood. That is all of his 70s self-published material that is, watch the video. I mean, you'll be drooling if you're like me. Reproduced the complete raw magazine at size with this kind of extensive notes and background material as well. And it's just, like I say, an absolute work of art in every way possible. These are single pages, not, like 2 pages folded in half, which means he is drilling into them and hand sewing. Takes about 5 hours to sew one of these together of continuous work. I just can't get over the craft of this. Apparently, his family were printers. So, like, he's coming at this as a second or third generation person who appreciates print and the history of print.
This was what I was wondering about the because when you have this sort of retro stuff, like I thought, well, maybe this is what became of the Eclipse paper. Maybe it turned into this, but it's like, oh no, this is a choice to make it look.
And if you go to the back, you can see the like I say, the original, first version color treatment, which is kind of instructive to see. But even this is pushed a little bit, because there is cleanup involved in all of this.
Absolutely, and I think he used the trade paperbacks, so those are very expensive, and you have to destroy them.
Right.
Like you have to disassemble those books so that you could put these things on the scanner to properly, get them to scan without any warping or skewing of the imagery. It is ridiculous, like how fortuitous this was, because we did a little walkthrough whenever we were first figuring out our audio video stuff for Cartoonist Kayfabe. Tom, you, me, Ben Mara, and Jim Mahfood, we went through the Alan Moore run, and that's nearly 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is a comic that I like to revisit every now and then. It's been that long, and I was about to pull my issues out and get them ready to go, and this book shows up. It's like the dude read my mind.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing achievement. Whenever you think about the amount of time and resources that pour into this, he does not really sell. He doesn't like redo them. There's one run.
Sure.
Mostly he gives them away. If there are some for sale, they're sold at cost. This is really like he writes extensively about his idea of making books of this quality and suggests this is ideally how like Marvel and DC or any of the people that are publishing books, they should start with the premier edition. Like this is the highest quality edition. And then you have the resources. You have the well-scanned pages, the color-corrected pages, all those things that you can then, filter these down into the mass editions and the paperback editions.
So at cost, what do you think this book is with all the materials and the leather and the time equity and stuff?
Well, the time isn't factored in, but it just costs for like the printing and all the tools, the leather and stuff, probably about $1,000.
So he sent $3,000 worth of stuff.
And again, not factoring in the time that is just
for sure.
Yeah.
We
a
all
year
sort
plus
of production.
Say goodbye to that stuff when you do like creative work.
Yeah, it's really, it's just remarkable. Like, and you look at this stuff, and I understand Marvel's DC, everybody's just churning stuff out, but the idea that like you could have this level of craft associated with a book, I'm surprised more people aren't trying to get into this. As we were corresponding, he was saying one way he could see this being used is on Kickstarters. This could be the high-end version. You could do 6 of these or 10 of these as like your highest-end version of the material. Imagine the Faust, the 6 amazing copies of Faust at this level, or any book that you love out there. Especially comics are just, they're built for this. These comics that people pour their soul onto these pages, they deserve this treatment, at the highest level. These are just gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
This is the best book that I have in my whole library.
Yes.
I don't know what the second best is.
Yeah, and I would tell everybody, we'll flash it again at the end of the video, but go follow this guy. Even as just a creative inspiration to you, there's so much that he's doing that I love bookmaking, and this is like levels that I had never seen before.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Also, a 1,000-page book. This is like an old family Bible or something.
When he sent this package, it was a 40-pound package, and there's 3 books in the thing. So if you factor in the weight of the box, you're still pushing past 10 pounds, maybe 15 pounds.
Yeah, it's quite an accomplishment. These Buckingham issues, I've been going through that in this book. Because this is another series I've not read from beginning to end in order, and I need to do that. But the Buckingham stuff, it's blowing my mind at what he's bringing in terms of different style. Like this stuff has to be done on a photocopier.
Right.
There's so much interesting visuals here. You just wonder like, who's coming up with some of these ideas? How much is in Gaiman's script? How much is Buckingham really trying to figure stuff out or knowing what he can do or pushing what he can do to deliver this kind of visuals?
When we did those earlier vids, you were not included, Jimmy. And I would actually, and we also didn't do the microscope view.
Yeah.
So we could go through this again, and with the microscope view, with your point of view added, and with 5 years more experience added to just my knowledge, and we could handle this again.
Have either of you seen like the current ones that are coming at that like
No.
Mark Buckingham and Neil Gaiman? Because it's kind of an interesting story because he already did like a version of them, you know, back in like the late 80s or early 90s, and then that got scrapped. It never came out. And so now he's like, Mark Buckingham's completely redrawing them, recomposing them into these like double page composition. It's really interesting from a process point of view.
So beyond the Buckingham stuff, this dude also collects those apocrypha, or however you say that word, apocrypha stories. So you get those ancillary bits that guys like, you know, Alex Ross did a story. I think maybe Matt Wagner did one or two.
Yep.
And then a bunch of like the staples of like Eclipse Comics, the guys who were drawing like New Wave and DN Agents and shit like that.
Yeah, it is an extremely...
Yeah, here's the...
stuff from Warrior Magazine.
extremely thorough.
Yeah, it's part of the continuity.
It is. Man, it makes you understand these characters a little bit more. And it's Steve Dillon. You know, there was no Steve Dillon stories in the Eclipse books.
Yeah, it's really shocking to me looking at a book like this. Like,
and the 3D.
Yeah, the 3D. It looks pretty good, too. I went through this story with the glasses on. And
Yeah.
very, very good job on all of that. The reproduction of that, very exciting to see. It's just again, it's a resource, but I do think that people are interested in bookbinding. You know, like I've certainly crossed paths with a number of people who make books, not at this level, but you have all the levels to choose from. Here are your letters pages, so including those. Love a good letters page, pinups that would have appeared in the back of the comic books. There are ads that are reproduced.
It's about 50, 60 pages of just the letters.
Yes.
And then the crown jewel of this is the long out of print, probably never to be reprinted, Komoda, the Tomorrow's book.
Yeah.
Cover gallery here at the end. It's fun to think too about like, how do you do this? Should the covers be with the content? You know,
all choices.
I love a thoughtful book designer and how they put together the body of the content of the
Absolutely.
Of the book.
All choices that need to be ironed out, man.
Man, these covers, Dave McKean, beautiful covers. Barry Windsor Smith. It's amazing.
Always love that cover.
They're so good. The trade paperback covers and stuff.
Yeah, that's the
all these collections.
reprints
And
in the
here's your
Gangler.
Komoda companion piece.
Yeah, I've been wanting this book for
Yeah.
a long time. Like when it came out, that was when I still was like semi-broke, and just could not afford too much. So it's been long out of print and very expensive.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
I
200, $300.
I passed up on it, and I figured it's one of those things. Oh, it'll be there. It'll be, you know. and
Hey, it's here now.
Yeah, right. Didn't have to wait too long.
It's so great to have this kind of stuff packaged in it too, as giving context to what is this magnificent book.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so necessary. And once again, like this can only happen really in a customized situation like this, because you know it's a Tomorrow's book, and let's not even talk about just the ownership rights of Miracle Man as they are. Like, who the fuck knows who owns what? This would never happen if it wasn't for an extremely dedicated craftsman, and we are very lucky recipients.
And he doesn't just do comics. Like one of his first works was Thomas Peiken, like zines that he had been published in, collecting those zines. And it's pretty interesting. If you follow this guy, you can read about some of his projects, and just finding the source material in order to make a book like any of the books he makes, that's a big step.
Yeah.
It can be super expensive. You might have to find other collectors that are willing to lend you stuff, and then figure out how you can get what you need without destroying those copies. But I don't know, man. We talk a lot about making on this show. I find such inspiration when I see somebody that's just making something, especially a labor of love of this sort, and it just doesn't. I don't know that it'll get better. I don't have expectations to see better books than this.
No, but before we get out of here, though, you have to show the very last page, where
This is your original first issue at size.
where the dude like personalized them to us in print.
So, like, this texture is the Eclipse version, but for the modern day sequences, he filters it out.
Right. Should have Tom's name in there somewhere. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Jessica.
This copy belongs to Tom Scioli.
That's awesome.
How cool is that, huh?
Yes. Love
And
it.
you see the Optics Press number 7. What that means is he's done 6 other books up to this point. I'm sure he's got one, in the works right now, but just a pure inspiration, man. It blows me away. It kind of restores my faith in humanity, the art, the making, that like this is stuff that a guy made this with his hands.
Right.
unbelievable.
All the inspiring stuff is on the grassroots level. You know, it's like at the corporate level where you start getting disillusioned.
It really is exciting to think too. You know, we've shown really nice editions that Ian Holmgren had made. I believe he is now working for some publishers doing book design on
Ian
some
Chalgren.
of this. Chalgren. Who's Holmgren? I wonder who that is. Ian Chalgren has sent us books that he has made, kind of artist edition style books, and I believe he now has some jobs that he is doing for bigger publishers. So it is exciting that people care about this stuff enough to make the books that they want to exist, but also now they can put that influence, they can apply that as some of the bigger publishers show that they care about what they're making and they want to bring in these new voices. And it's just awesome, man. It's just awesome. It's crazy. It feels like I may have died like 15 years ago and this is all just some sort of fever dream, you know, but I hope I never wake up from it.
Great cover too. Like this, between like the most horrific panel or page of the whole series and then this Bam Biff Pow kind of stuff on top of it.
Yeah, all the creative choices in this book I feel like stand up, and I bet if you talk to Andrew about him, he'd be able to talk extensively about why he did this or that. You know, like the desaturation in that background's really a nice choice to make the Silver Age look pop. It's just great stuff.
Yeah, like off the bat, you could guess that this guy, like whenever you watch those documentaries on Helvetica or the Linotype machine, and they're in the home of an intense graphic designer and everything is meticulous and every choice of like spoons hanging from their little holders are like thought out. I just get the sense that this fella ain't too different than those people that have the, you know, very sensible glasses and are well groomed and all that kind of shit. This is too dedicated, man, to be able to turn that switch off.
Yeah, and I hope all those makers out there that are watching this, first stop, go start following him. There's a lot of resources that he posts and shows off that work, man. Watch him flip through some of his other books. They're all this level, you know. They're all fantastic, humbling and inspiring at the same time.
Amazing, man. Good to go.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes, Andrew. Thank you so much, man.
Big thanks.
To send these things in triplicate, Jesus Christ. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. We're a daily YouTube channel, and we're a daily YouTube channel, so we have more than 1,000 videos up there live as we speak, and we might have talked about your favorite comics. Hit the little magnifying glass on the front page, pop in your favorite titles, see if we talked about your faves. If we did not, please don't hesitate to put some stuff in the comments. Let us know what comics you need us to cover, and we will get to them as soon as possible. The Patreon is there for the King of Kayfabers to support Cartoonist Kayfabe, and one of the rewards you get from that is that live stream recording session, of which we have about 36 people in there right now who are totally going crazy over this book that we just showed off. But in other situations, mitigates the Kayfabe effect. We talk about something sexy that people haven't thought about in a little while. The King Kayfabers get all the cheapest copies off the aftermarket. Ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make. You're looking at a healthy bibliography of what we have put out to date, but there's some new stuff coming out. The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is going to be here in October, in time for the Christmas season. 504 pages, 150 pages of additionals that are not in those first 4 volumes. It is the 10th anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree, the 50th anniversary of hip hop as a culture. So this book here is the ultimate statement on Hip Hop Family Tree. Make sure you get it. Look at that, man. That's a Tom Scioli cameo appearance, man. I was too intimidated to do the Jack Kirby artwork there. This is not the only holiday effort that will be coming out in 2023. The X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback comes out in November. It's going to be the size of the typical trade paperbacks, and it's going to include the out-of-print X-Men Grand Design volumes. The comics I'm working on now is Red Room. 2 trade paperbacks of that exist. And this is the last series of Red Room called Crypto Killers. 3 issues out right now, 1 more issue to come. But make sure you get your hands on Red Room Crypto Killers issue 3, because this backup strip is the prototypical first appearance of the characters that I'm going to be exploring in my daily strip, which is now serializing on my own Patreon. Tom, tell the people what you have coming out.
Well, September is going to be big for me. We got I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And we've got Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics in softcover. And I also have Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion, coming from Image Comics. It's a lost Jack Kirby comic that I've brought into the modern day.
You can pick up and pre-order my next Street Angel book, Street Angel Princess of Poverty. This collects all the Street Angel comics that are not in Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive. Both of these are available from Image Comics or will be soon if you pre-order. True Crime Funnies is my latest self-published comic featuring 3 nonfiction stories, one about a cop and 2 about professional wrestling. So if you haven't picked this one up yet, it is actually out of print. You can read it on patreon.com/JimRugg. You can download it on jimrugg.com. And if you wait patiently, I will have some of these available before the end of the year. You can also pick up Hulk Grand Design while supplies last. This is sold out at the distribution level, which means it'll be sold out everywhere soon. So if your store still has one and you don't, you might want to pick that up sooner rather than later.
Not the only way to support the channel. Jimmy, let them know.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
There you have it. Keep the channel rocking. We can make those videos on the daily. Give them those marching orders, Jimmy, and we'll be on our way.
Make more comics.
How about that book, huh?
Yeah. Oh, man. Wow.
It blows my mind. I can't believe anybody puts that much into
There's gonna be one up there.
Well, it being like a generational thing makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, like it's the family business, the family practice.
I say it all the time, like printing used to be a real craft.
Yeah.
And you know, I my first job, we worked with a guy and there was a pressman, you know, like that was his trade. Mm-hmm. I don't know that you know, that's a dying breed. It just isn't, those jobs don't exist the way they used to. Try to package this back up nicely for you.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, do take off the plastic cover whenever you're reading. That's per the creator's instructions.
Yeah, the packing is meticulous. Even the handwritten message is like a nice some nice lettering on there.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Nicely spaced. Yeah, I was not expecting this part.
The mail stuff is so funny because you just never know. You know, like we had a giant heavy box. Our thought was, oh, somebody sent a bunch of wizards.
So many wizard magazines, man. Because like them shits, that slick paper is heavy.
He talks about that in, you know, like between corresponding with him and reading some interviews of his, he covers that, you know, and how spines are built and sometimes not built well because of the weight, and the coated paper is so heavy that a lot of this stuff is printed on.
Nice job. His lips smooth. The word is barely a whisper.
Kimura.
Ed, I didn't use yours or pack it back up the way I should have.
It's all good.
Shouldn't even pull it out. I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
how,
you never know, man. You never know.
Unpackable this was.
You never know. Oh, gotta be prepared.
Let me zoom down a little.
I can't see the square. Oh, no, I see it.
It's red.
Looks good against the color background.
Yeah, that's the move. Even though Brian Boland, like, they'll send critiques and stuff about our videos. He's like, do you really need that background?
I think that a busy background drives some people insane. You know, I mean, you got to do what you got to do, but I think there's some people who like it, like chalk on a track, you know, chalkboard or something.
He's a meticulous fellow
for sure.
Yeah, there's not a lot of.
But we ain't here for charity,
extra on
Right?
his.
Exactly.
Hello and welcome to your favorite comic book YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
And I'm Tom Scholey, author of I Am Stan.
And today we are going to be looking at friend of the show, Brian Boland's Actress and the Bishop. A really nice collection here of some of his comic strips. But before we do, I want to remind everybody that we do have a Patreon. Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon has 3 different levels that'll give you access to our videos early. At the King Kayfaber level, you'll get access to all of our videos first, as well as our recording session.
That way, if you see a book that you want to add to your collection, if it's rare or hard to find, you'll be the first one buying it before it disappears and before those prices go up. Also, we will be in Baltimore September 8th, 9th, and 10th for Baltimore Comic-Con. It's a great show for comic book fans. We hope to see a lot of you there, and we hope that you'll be wearing your Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and hats and spreading the good word about comics there. So, diving into The Actress and the Bishop by Brian Boland, we've had a couple of shoot interviews with Brian Boland, and he has talked about this strip. Pretty cool to actually finally get to see it in print. And a nice addition here, Shift Presents. I'm not familiar with them as a publisher, but they do a very nice job, in my opinion, of reproducing this, almost like an artist edition, in that you can see the variations in ink thickness. You can see the rolled lines for the lettering guides throughout this, and what you can really see and appreciate is Brian Boland's great line work.
Yeah, man. This early strip is from A1 from 1989.
Okay.
So that means he drew it on paper.
Yes.
Early adopter of the digital revolution when it comes to drawing and things, man. So some of these strips are done on paper, but I think that the big story here is digitally produced. Very glad that the work was shot directly from the original boards and presented as is.
And it's kind of, the story is these two are kind of an odd couple.
Yeah.
You know, they're flatmates. Don't know if they're more than that, maybe. It's kind of implied that they are. But she is they call her an actress. I think she's actually...
a woman of the night.
That's right, that's right. And of course, he's a man of the cloth, although I think he may not really be a man of the cloth any longer, but he still dresses the part. And man, the work on paper quality is so much fun as an art fan, watching or seeing, you know, screen tones and things that are built on these pages, and just the meticulous drawing.
Absolutely. And he takes no shorts, man. So like that gray value, that's a pen line in perspective, mapped out every other millimeter. Literally.
It's astonishing. It's astonishing that a person can work at this level.
Don't you think that's supposed to be Alan Moore?
Mm-hmm.
It does look like it. I also think like all that white, some of that's got to be white media, right? Some of those white hairs.
Yeah, totally. But you know what's funny is it's Alan Moore now, but this was 1989, so
Projecting.
that wasn't quite him then.
Everything is written in a rhyming couplets.
Yes.
Don't know how I feel about that.
It gets old.
It's like a limerick, because
It is.
The Actress and the Bishop, that's like a part of like dirty jokes in England. Like it's a super familiar reference in England, not so much here, you know.
Right. So like, you know, it's small strips, right? So like you could read 3 pages of it and then be good, and then maybe another 3-pager. But when you get to the 20 pages, one thing I will give him props for being able to figure out how to get your verbiage across and do some little rhyme gimmick, but it wears heavy, man. Like
this would have been right after Killing Joke, I guess, like late 80s here.
Yeah.
So you see it, you know, as a fan of Killing Joke, like he's got all of those tools at his disposal.
This looks like somebody who would show up in Killing Joke. You know?
Right.
Yeah, it might still be a little bit in that mode. Even some of these panels feels like that could have been right out of there.
Look at the depth that he's able to convey in just ink and mechanical tools.
Yeah, it reminds me of a shot from the north side.
Yeah, totally.
I follow some Pittsburgh photographers, and you'll often see that, and it's kind of that's the angle, you know, as the north side slopes down towards the river. Great with shadows, like anything that has to do with the values, really outstanding stuff. So this is the long story, The Thing in the Shed, and I actually think this is a pretty good story, the way it's written. You know, it kind of sucks you in. It sets up certain things as you go along. Ed, were you speculating you think this is digital?
Yeah, but he's penciled on paper.
Right. It's going to be interesting because the back matter in this book's pretty outstanding, and it includes layouts to a bunch of this particular story. So we'll get to see those roughs as we go along. But the idea is there's something ominous in this shed behind their place. And there'll be clues along the way about the nature of that thing. Some local pets go missing. These are fun too because they're kind of comic strip like. You know, you get to see Boland having fun, playing around, having these characters fooling around a bit.
And he comes from that place. His earliest works were very humorous. You know, you could see shades of them in like Cheval Noir, the Dark Horse, and like Negative Burn. You know, they would get hold of some of that stuff. But he came up from the British underground.
Yeah, it's just remarkable looking at his artwork.
That robe is ridiculous.
Would not want to draw that.
Why would you choose that?
Wouldn't
Jack
want to
of
draw it one
hearts.
time. Yeah.
Real masochist, man.
I could say that about this foliage too, though. It's there's a lot of detailed work in here.
Absolutely, and it's real fun to see how he arrives at that from his starting point.
So the pets go missing, as does one of the neighbors who had been hanging up her laundry next door. We're going to add her to the list of people that are long gone. This is kind of a fun rumination. This is the young bishop, and he's talking about reading this book and not knowing which parts are true and which parts are false. And as he ruminates a little bit, you realize it's the Bible that he's talking about.
Check this out, man. Go flip the page. 3 different layers of perspective dots on that shirt, from big dots to like polka dots to medium-sized dots.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And by the way, she's not there anymore.
Right.
So it's almost this perfect 4-panel sequence. Somebody that he would see working in the yard hanging up laundry every day, and now she's gone.
And you can see him laying in digital, like, copy pasting stuff.
It's strange. I think it's the only place that happens. But you know what are weird marks for him is this gray shading around the bishop's head. There's some lines there that I've never seen.
Yeah,
on the Brian Boland piece.
On the bookshelf, there in the previous page, there's a lot of typography.
This
and
map may be a digital element.
Yeah,
too.
maybe stuff like this also.
This is a fun sequence too, as our actress is reading in the tub. She's reading a Western novel, so we get into that Western scene that she's into in the book until, of course, there's a problem with the plumbing. Which is what drives her into the backyard toward this terrifying shed. The whole shed that we've been leading up to this point. This panel's repeated.
Yeah, and certainly the shed stuff. Like I don't know that he redraws the shed a bunch.
Yeah, that's probably true. But that's an exact reproduction.
And aren't the eyes so symmetrical? Like maybe he drew one eye and flipped it.
Oh, it's possible.
But not the inking part. Like I think he inked those because like you could count the hatches and stuff like that, and they're not the same. I say that just in the spirit of trying to reverse engineer the guy's work. Here's some more of that digital stuff.
It's funny how this almost works in because he does so much grays in his drawing.
Yeah.
You can put in like a gray photograph and it almost fits.
Oh, totally. I mean, he uses like gray scale on the values of a lot of his stuff.
This is a gradation, again, an effect that I don't see him use anywhere else. It's fun to think like he's experimenting on something that involves drawing a robe of that detail, but still some room to experiment. Let's try things out.
Good thing it's printed on this kind of glossy paper because at the early sort of digital application of grays in like the 90s, there are so many comics. Like even this gray would show up so dark and just ugly. Real ugly.
You talk about the robe and the intricacy. I'd imagine the fun contrast of a super busy, ornate bishop's robe and then just a nude figure probably like really appealed to Brian Boland just as like an interesting design element.
It could be, but the giveaway here, right as we're about to see the actress go into that shed and whatever fearsome thing has been eating pets and neighbors, we get the postcard from the neighbor that she has actually run off with the guy she met in the supermarket, and the thing that was in the shed basically goes away. It never got the food that it wanted, and it slipped off into the night without ever being seen. All right, so this one probably, I would assume, also a digital version.
I think so.
Look at the detail in the lines around this bird and its feathers.
Yeah, it's like an etching.
It's really shocking to me. This speckle effect, probably something digital, some kind of brush or effect of a filter that you could put on a grayscale.
Yeah, I bet it's something that he built because I actually associate those speckles with him, and very often in his late period digital works, the color of the background will be speckled in the same way. So he might have created this brush because it feels like Brian Boland to me, except every time I've seen it before, it would be a color application.
Yeah, it's interesting on the panel if you think of it as like if this were ink on paper, what you're doing, because you're masking stuff off and then doing your flicking or some kind of spraying to get that texture on there.
And it just wouldn't be that even. You know, you'd get some thick blobs and stuff.
Yeah, it was funny whenever we interviewed him because like he had tutorials on how he would work digitally way before I was seeing anybody do that level of work.
Absolutely.
And I'm expecting him to be like this tech guru of like, this is the cutting edge of Photoshop and digital art. And he kind of implied that he's he got to that point, and that's where he stopped evolving in terms of his digital prowess.
You're right.
And probably smart because of like the bloatware aspect of Photoshop as
you
it
don't
goes
need all
on.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you look at his art, and it's not like, oh, he's missing something. If he had kept learning Photoshop.
Still
but
completely Boland.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, that was the beauty of it, because it never ceased being Brian Boland. And it was kind of shocking that that he revealed that it was digital.
Yeah, I remember learning that and being stunned
Yes.
because his art looks warm to me in a way that I don't associate with that kind of digital. Story here, they were going on a vacation, going to the beach, their car breaks down, Bishop useless for actually repairing anything. So the actress is fixing the car, and Bishop is having this side experience being hauled off by the giant bird, and kind of a fantastic voyage. Until the bird finally... I like the texture on that wrench. I thought that was very believable.
She in this particular strip, she feels very like inspired by Jaime Hernandez, like the rendering and some of her poses and like facial features for some, like it seems a little different from the other ones.
Interesting you should say that, Tom, because there's an interview with Boland in the back here, and he talks about how no problem with reference for the aged, weathered, weighted face of the Bishop, but a hard time drawing like a beautiful woman and really putting a personality on there is something that's a tough thing to draw.
Yeah.
And the bird drops our Bishop lead, falling down to earth. This is absurd too, by the way, what she's doing to repair this engine. She's lifted this out of the car. Reading the manual to do these repairs. You do wonder, like, that's a reference face, I imagine.
Yeah, it just has so much life to it.
Yeah, it does. It has kind of a contrast with some of the, like maybe the face you pointed out, Tom, before that. And before the Bishop can hit the ground, it's revealed he was actually asleep. So he wakes up and off they go, and they never do make it to the beach.
I love the end. Never saw that before.
Great. Yeah, it's great.
He describes that in his real life, like the wife is the keeper of the house. Like she makes everything go, and he's kind of the boob of the house. So it's kind of semi-autobiographical in that sense.
Should note the Bishop drank his bottle of whiskey too, so those dreams might have been inspired by...
cover of Boland strips right there.
It is. He's got 2 actress and Bishop stories that are just prose.
Yeah.
And there's a couple that he talks about in his interview that he may or may not get around to. They take a lot of work to draw them, so.
In the 80s, there was a Brian Boland portfolio, and this was one of the plates of the portfolio. This is the only image I ever saw from that portfolio set. It was, advertised in Eclipse Comics or maybe Amazing Heroes or something. But man, I always, like, this blew my mind. I saw this before I saw Wrightson's Frankenstein, and I tried to, like, get that kind of level of gray value and depth and stuff into my work. Just impossible.
Yeah, this one is shocking. Is this in the artist edition? I feel like we've had a close-up look at this piece. Maybe it was reproduced somewhere else.
Yeah, it wasn't, because he owns this. Like, this isn't some 2000 AD commission. It's something that he spent a million years on doing his own thing.
Yeah, it must have just been something I found, looking him up. This is always the grotesque version that kind of freaks me out.
Yeah, sure.
Imagine if he looked like this throughout the strip. I feel like it would be a totally different experience reading this if that's what he looked like.
But she's a shifty lass as well.
Yeah, there's different iterations of her, visible in this book.
Got the great interview where he reveals some of that technical stuff, and then
love this.
Worth the price of admission right here for the roughs for that big story.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is about actual size for these. This looks like a sheet of paper,
Of A3?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But man, how about this? Whenever you think that this is digital, the story, the finished art, to see it here, and it's still, that precision is clearly on display.
Right.
And I can't tell, like, it doesn't feel like these are pencils exactly, but they're so tight they feel more than just like a rough layout.
Yeah, it feels like a
breaking
second
your story down.
Yeah, a second pass, like a second generation of whatever it is that he does that makes stuff go. But then, he'll get a little warmth, a little humanity in these figures and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. The knife juggling. Gotta love that. Yeah, I like the stuff where he's doing some sketching on the figure to kind of get the volume and the weight or the posture of the figures. That's usually pretty rich.
Yeah, he changes this. It's so much more symmetrical and stuff when it's digitally applied.
Yeah, the expression changes too. Her mouth, everything is different in the actual print version. The same with the pets. It's totally different pets that he ends up using. So it is kind of like working out a draft at this stage. It's so believable too whenever he does weight. That's what surprises me is how good. Like, I don't know that this is modeled, but the weight is totally believable.
I'm trying to find that page.
That's funny, it may not be in there because a lot of this stuff does change.
Right.
Yeah, there's
I'll
some
linger on
like
there
this
if you
panel's
can.
been broken
This
up
is a
into
very
two
different
panels.
Right, you
different
see,
set of
it's like
stuff.
this is down there. So yeah, so he's making a lot of decisions. Yeah, so this panel is that panel.
Right, and this is your change of him reading the book, right?
Right.
And a completely different pose for her in the sort of doing the dishes.
I think this was on the shelf for a long time.
Yeah, it may have been.
So I wonder if this was on the shelf a long time, if like this kind of penciling would be part of his like current process. Or...
I don't think so. I think we talked to him about that, and I think he's a Wacom dude. You just have a lower,
it's really good foot.
lower transparency.
That's fun too, seeing a little bit of the side of the pencil.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's so cool to see his pencils like this. Like you say, Ed, this is probably worth the price of admission, just a chance to see a guy of Boland's skill, but getting to see kind of the raw drawing underneath.
It's a different flavor, and like this is a really amazing aesthetic. Like it would be, it's kind of odd to me, like when somebody does something like this and isn't like, ooh, what if I did a comic that kind of looked like this?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, totally printable, totally publishable. But it doesn't meet the Brian Boland standards, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's part of what makes Boland,
Yeah,
is that he's not publishing that. But you do look at it and think, like, I've read comics that look 100 times worse than those pencil pages. Like, that would work for a lot of comics. It'd be an improvement over a lot of the comics that I've read over the years. But, not the way he sees it, I guess.
Good to go?
Yep.
This was sent to us through the mail, so shout out to the Kayfaber that sent that to us. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. We are a daily YouTube show, so we have more than 1,000 videos in our queue right now. Make sure that you hit the little magnifying glass. I always forget what it's called. A little magnifying glass on the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Type in your favorite comics or series. Maybe we talked about them. If we did not, please put something in the comments so that we know to advance those books a little higher in our to-read pile. There's a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon where the King Kayfabers can mitigate the kayfabe effect by pledging their support. The King... hold up. There's a Patreon there is a Patreon for Cartoonist Kayfabe. The King Kayfabers at the Patreon can mitigate the kayfabe effect by getting the videos early, and they're also hanging out with us in a live stream recording session as we are making these videos, so they have the chance to pounce on the books before anybody else. Ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make, and it's going to be a busy 2023 for the Kings of Kayfabe. The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming to you in October. That's sooner than later. And it is going to have 504 pages total. It has all 4 volumes of Hip Hop Family Tree. It has 150 pages of extras, as you can see before you. And it'll be a fantastic Christmas present for the person who's not suspecting to get this thing under the tree. Not the only holiday effort to come. X-Men Grand Design Trilogy Trade Paperback is coming to you. It's going to collect all 3 volumes of X-Men Grand Design, including the out-of-print volumes. Red Room is the new comic I've been working on the past couple of years. There are 2 trade paperbacks that exist of that, but this is the final miniseries as it's coming out, Crypto Killers. And this 3rd volume, this 3rd issue of Crypto Killers, has a backup story called Latchkey Kids, which is the first appearance of my characters who are in my daily comic strip. that I'm going to be putting out in 2024, but I'm serializing it right now on my own Patreon, and the first episode is complete. Tom, what do you have?
Coming in September is I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. It's the story of Stan Lee's life in comic book form. And we have a softcover reprint of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. The story of Jack Kirby's life in comic book form. And also coming in September from Image Comics is Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. It's an old lost Jack Kirby comic brought into the modern day in a deluxe edition, and ask your local comics retailer to set aside a copy for you.
Jimmy, what do you got, man?
My next release comes out in November, Street Angel Princess of Poverty from Image Comics. You can pre-order this one now, and if you get it with Deadliest Girl Alive, you will have all of the Street Angel comics that have been done so far. It should look very nice on your shelf next to Deadliest Girl Alive. They are designed to be a set. Hulk Grand Design is my contribution to Grand Design and to the history of Hulk. One of my favorite books that I have made so far. This is sold out at the distribution level, which means you might still find it on your local comic shop shelf. If you do, I recommend picking it up if you want this book, because once it's gone, it's hard to tell when you will see it again, at least at cover price. And my latest self-published comic, True Crime Funnies #1, 3 nonfiction stories from a rookie drug cop to a couple of wrestling yarns. You can read this now as a digital comic at jimrug.com or patreon.com/jimrug, and I am reprinting this thing now. We'll have them in time for Baltimore Comic-Con, and hopefully sell them one more time online before Christmas.
Not the only way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give them those options, Jimmy.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
There you have it. Your ways to keep the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel rocking on a near daily basis, if not daily. Give them those marching orders, Jimmy, and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
Boom. There it is, man.
Okay.
Ugh.
Near daily.
I always got to hedge a little bit. Who knows,
Just
man?
in case.
Who knows?
We should have a count of how long it's been on that
Right,
schedule.
a little
Seriously,
thing
like it's been a long time since we
It's
missed
been
a
over
day.
3 years.
Anytime you tell anybody that it's like a day, that like blows people's minds.
Yeah. And see, like us doing these streams, it takes the illusion away, because like when we first started doing the streams, people were like, "Oh, I thought you guys did this every day." So we fucked something up a little bit, but it's a good sacrifice to have the King Kayfabers in the chat, man, and to keep the conversation flowing and stuff. A lot of them followed our homeboy, our bookbinder dude.
They won't be disappointed.
Yeah, I'm gonna start following.
I was the first one. I jumped on it as soon as I got home, and the stuff he makes is just marvelous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So that'll be good. I mean, he sent us some serious books. I hope that it increases his followers.
Surely will.
And I hope it connects us to more bookmakers. I know that other people are out there doing that. Like I see proof of that from time to time, and it's like I want to know what people are making.
Let me airdrop you this thing.
Oh, let me turn on the. I'm on airplane mode. All right, I should be good.
All right.
I don't know if you guys are aware of this book. I recommend it. It's kind of like
that's
Destroy Your
it as
Duck.
well.
It's another Tomorrow's thing, but it's a bunch of like Jack Kirby stuff that really hasn't been published.
I always wanted to see these Bullseye
Yeah.
comics and see how they read and stuff.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. It's a step closer to like Marvel Comics. Like they read really well. It's like in theory it should be the best that Simon and Kirby have to offer, because this is like the end of the line for them. These are like the last comics they made.
They were publishing, right? And that's whenever things went.
Yeah, they were doing they
belly up.
Yeah. Right as they started publishing their own stuff, the whole industry collapsed, as it periodically does.
Yeah, there's a cycle to it, to our collapse.
All right. Anything else from the King Kayfabers before we sign off here?
I think that's it, man. Thank you guys so much. Dude, what videos did we cover, man? I'm trying to think of like what you should try to edit first. Maybe that Tom unboxing, man.
Yeah.
Because if you get it done today, like I might put that up tomorrow, dude. Because it should be hyperbolic enough that it's intriguing. And
yeah, I love a video like that where
Yeah.
it is so hyperbolic and there's no exaggeration when I say that's the finest book I've touched.
yeah, absolutely.
All that.
I want you guys to know that we did 2 vids with Jeff Darrow, one looking at Den and the other with the new Shaolin Cowboy. So obviously those will be the first ones that I edit for you guys, and you should start to see them within the next couple of hours. So thank you guys for joining us. Take care, and keep an eye out on the Patreon. We'll start putting those links up. Take care, guys.